Settle into this quiet space. Let your body grow heavy and your mind become still. Tonight, we do not journey outward to the stars but inward into a cosmos just as vast and mysterious, the subconscious mind. Below the surface of our waking thoughts, our conscious plans and perceptions, lies a hidden world, a realm of hidden desires, ancient symbols, primal fears, and profound intuition. This is the unseen 90% of the iceberg of the self, the silent engine that powerfully shapes our feelings, drives our behaviors, and authors our dreams. For the next 3 hours, we will gently explore these secrets of the subconscious, seeking not to conquer this realm, but to understand and befriend it. This is a journey designed to relax the conscious gatekeeper, allowing you to drift peacefully into sleep, guided by the deep, quiet currents of your own inner world. Let the exploration begin. The feeling of being you in this moment is likely centered in your conscious awareness. You are aware of the sound of this voice, the thoughts that arise in response, the feeling of the air around you. This conscious mind is the part of ourselves we know best. It is the seat of our rational thought, our deliberate choices, our focused attention. For centuries, we have largely identified this conscious awareness as the entirety of our mental selves. Yet, one of the most profound revolutions in human thought, initiated over a century ago, was the realization that this conscious awareness is merely the tip of a vast, submerged continent of mental activity. This is the unconscious, or as we will explore it, the subconscious mind. The metaphor most famously used to describe this relationship is that of the unseen iceberg. Our conscious mind is the small peak visible above the water, while the vast, powerful, and largely invisible mass of the subconscious lies beneath the waves, shaping our course in ways we rarely perceive. This is the foundational secret of the modern psychological exploration of the self. You are far more than you consciously think you are. The vast majority of your mental processing, your deepest memories, your learned skills, your automatic emotional reactions, your ingrained beliefs, your primal drives, operates outside of your direct awareness and control. This is not a flaw, it is a feature of profound cognitive efficiency. Your conscious mind has a very limited capacity. It can only juggle a few pieces of information at once. To navigate the immense complexity of the world, your brain must automate countless processes, relegating them to the powerful, parallel processing capabilities of the subconscious. Think of learning to drive a car. At first, every action, steering, braking, checking mirrors, requires intense conscious effort. But with practice, these skills become automated, handled by the subconscious, freeing up your conscious mind to focus on navigating, conversation, or simply enjoying the drive. Your subconscious mind is the master of all your ingrained habits and skills. But the subconscious is far more than just a repository for automated skills. According to the depth psychologies pioneered by figures like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, it is a dynamic, living realm with its own language, its own desires, and its own wisdom. It is the source of our deepest motivations and our most profound fears. Freud's model, which we will explore, saw the unconscious as a cellar, a place where primal drives, socially unacceptable desires, and traumatic memories were actively repressed, or pushed out of awareness by the conscious ego. These repressed contents, however, do not simply disappear. They remain active, influencing our moods, creating neurotic symptoms, and seeking expression through indirect means, most notably through our dreams. Carl Jung expanded this vision dramatically. He agreed with Freud about the personal unconscious, the repository of an individual's forgotten or repressed experiences. But he also proposed the existence of a deeper transpersonal layer he called the collective unconscious. This, for Jung, was a kind of inherited psychic foundation shared by all of humanity, a vast reservoir of latent memory traces and symbolic structures passed down from our ancestral past. This collective unconscious expresses itself through archetypes, universal, primordial images and ideas that appear in the myths, religions, fairy tales, and dreams of all cultures. The archetypes of the mother, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, these are not personal creations, but inherited patterns that structure our perception and give our lives a sense of transpersonal meaning. In this view, the subconscious is not just a personal cellar, but a deep, ancient ocean connecting us to the entire history of human experience. Modern cognitive science and neuroscience, while often using different language, have provided robust evidence for the existence and power of this vast, non-conscious processing system. We now know about implicit memory, where past experiences can influence our behavior without our conscious recall of those experiences. We know about subliminal perception, where stimuli presented below the threshold of awareness can still subtly affect our emotions and judgments. We understand implicit bias, the unconscious attitudes and stereotypes that can shape our interactions with others. The modern view sees the subconscious not necessarily as a place of Freudian conflict, but as a highly efficient, parallel processing system that handles the vast majority of our mental life. It is the source of our gut feelings, our intuition, our sudden creative insights. It is constantly processing information, finding patterns, and making associations far beyond the capacity of our deliberate, conscious mind. The mystery of the unseen iceberg is therefore twofold. First, what is the full content and structure of this vast realm? How do our personal experiences and our shared evolutionary heritage interact within it? What is the precise language of its symbols and dreams? Second, what is the nature of the boundary, the waterline of the iceberg between the conscious and the subconscious? How do thoughts and feelings rise into awareness? Can we, through practices like meditation, dream analysis, or therapy, build a better, more conscious relationship with these hidden depths? Can we learn to listen more closely to the whispers of our own intuition? Contemplating this secret of the subconscious mind is a profound act of humility. It requires us to let go of the ego's belief that it is the sole master of our inner house. It invites us to see ourselves as complex ecosystems, with a small, sunlit canopy of conscious thought and a vast, dark, and fertile root system of subconscious processes. It reframes our own thoughts and behaviors, suggesting that many of our actions are not the product of simple, conscious choice, but the final outcome of complex, unseen negotiations within our own psyche. As you continue to relax deeply, allow your conscious mind, the tip of the iceberg, to gently soften and dissolve its hard edges. Imagine the vast, quiet, powerful ocean of your own subconscious mind beneath the surface, a world of deep memory, of powerful emotion, of ancient symbols, of quiet, intuitive wisdom. You do not need to understand it all to map its every current and contour. Simply acknowledge its presence. Find peace in the knowledge that you are more than just your waking thoughts, that you are supported and guided by a deeper, broader intelligence within. Let go of the need for conscious control, and trust in the profound, mysterious wholeness of your entire being, resting calmly, floating gently on the surface of your own deep, inner ocean as you fall asleep. Freud's model, the ID, ego, and superego. Having acknowledged the vast, unseen territory of the subconscious mind, let us now explore the first systematic map of this inner world, a map that, while controversial and often revised, fundamentally changed our understanding of human nature. This is the structural model of the psyche proposed by Sigmund Freud. Freud envisioned the mind not as a unified whole, but as a dynamic, often conflicted, interplay of three fundamental agencies: the ID, the ego, and the superego. These are not literal structures in the brain, but powerful metaphorical concepts for describing the deep, often warring forces that shape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Understanding this model is to understand the language of depth psychology, a language that speaks of hidden desires, internal conflicts, and the constant, quiet negotiations that occur far beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. Contemplating this inner drama is a pathway to self-understanding and a profound method for deep relaxation as you fall asleep. Let us begin in the deepest, most primitive part of the mind, the source of all our psychic energy, the ID. In Freud's model, the ID is the original system of the personality. It is the part we are born with. It is entirely unconscious, a chaotic cauldron of raw, instinctual drives and urges. The ID operates purely on the pleasure principle. Its sole motivation is to seek immediate gratification for our biological and instinctual needs: hunger, thirst, warmth, and most centrally in Freud's theory, libido, which he saw as a broad life energy that includes sexual urges. The ID has no concept of logic, morality, or external reality. It is pure, primal desire. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now without regard for consequences. The ID is the screaming infant within us, demanding immediate satisfaction. Its thought process is primary process thinking, illogical, irrational, and fantastical. It is the source of our most powerful hidden desires, the untamed animal energy at the foundation of our being. However, a being operating solely on the pleasure principle cannot survive in the real world. A screaming infant cannot feed itself or protect itself. As the child begins to interact with the external world, a part of the ID develops to mediate between the inner world of desire and the outer world of reality. This is the ego. The ego develops out of the ID and is the part of the psyche that we most consciously identify with as our self. Its primary function is to deal with reality. The ego operates on the reality principle. It understands that desires cannot always be gratified immediately. It seeks to fulfill the ID's urges, but in a way that is realistic, safe, and socially acceptable. The ego is the problem solver, the rational decision maker. It engages in secondary process thinking, logical, realistic, and strategic. It must constantly negotiate with the demands of the ID, the constraints of reality, and the moral pressures of the third agency, the superego. The ego is the conscious manager of the psychic household, trying to keep the peace between the demanding resident in the basement and the critical voices coming from the attic. The third and final structure to develop is the superego. The superego is, in essence, our internalized moral compass, our conscience. It develops during childhood through the process of internalizing the moral standards, rules, and ideals of our parents and society. It represents our sense of right and wrong, our ideals, and our spiritual aspirations. The superego has two subsystems: the conscience, which includes information about what is viewed as bad and is responsible for feelings of guilt and remorse when we violate its rules, and the ego ideal, which includes the rules and standards for good behavior and to which we aspire. The superego strives for perfection, not pleasure or reality. It often works in direct opposition to the ID's primal urges, seeking to suppress them entirely. It punishes the ego with feelings of guilt for bad thoughts or actions and rewards it with feelings of pride for good ones. The superego is the internalized voice of authority, the inner critic, and the source of our moral anxieties. The mindfuck of Freud's model is the realization that our conscious self, our ego, is not the master in its own house. It is a perpetually embattled mediator caught in a three-way conflict. It is constantly trying to serve three harsh masters: the primal desires of the ID, the harsh realities of the external world, and the perfectionistic, often punishing, demands of the superego. Much of our psychological distress, according to Freud, arises from the conflicts between these three agencies. When the ID's desires clash with the superego's prohibitions, the ego experiences anxiety. To cope with this anxiety, the ego employs a variety of defense mechanisms, unconscious psychological strategies like repression, denial, projection, and sublimation, to protect itself and maintain a sense of stability. These defenses are crucial for functioning, but if they become too rigid or overused, they can lead to neurotic symptoms and a distorted perception of reality. This model reframes our entire inner life as a dynamic drama. A simple choice, like whether to eat a piece of cake, can be seen as a negotiation between these forces. The ID screams, "I want that cake now." The superego warns, "Cake is unhealthy, you should have self-control, you will feel guilty if you eat it." The ego, the conscious self, must then mediate. It might delay gratification, "I'll have a small piece after dinner," find a compromise, "I'll eat the cake but go for a long walk tomorrow," or use a defense mechanism like rationalization, "I've had a hard day, I deserve this cake." Our conscious thoughts are often just the surface ripples of these deep, subconscious negotiations. While many aspects of Freud's theory have been heavily criticized and revised by modern psychology, particularly its strong emphasis on psychosexual development and its lack of empirical testability, his structural model of the ID, ego, and superego remains an incredibly powerful and influential metaphor for understanding the conflicting forces within the human psyche. It was a revolutionary step in exploring the subconscious mind, suggesting that our behavior is often driven by forces we are not aware of and do not consciously control. It questions the very idea of a unified, rational self, replacing it with a more complex, conflicted, and dynamic picture. As you continue to fall asleep, gently bring your awareness to the different voices within your own mind. The voice of desire, of impulse, of immediate gratification, the echo of the ID. The voice of conscience, of should and should not, of ideals and guilt, the echo of the superego. And the voice of reason, of planning, of mediation, the voice of the ego. You do not need to judge these voices or take sides in their eternal conflict. Simply acknowledge them as different aspects of your rich and complex inner world. Find deep relaxation in understanding that this inner tension is a fundamental part of the human experience. See your conscious self not as a king on a throne, but as a skilled diplomat, navigating a complex inner landscape, resting peacefully, allowing the different parts of your psyche to find their own quiet balance in the stillness of sleep. Jung's archetypes, the persona and the shadow. Having explored Freud's model of the conflicted psyche, let us now journey deeper, guided by one of his most brilliant and rebellious students, Carl Gustav Jung. Jung expanded our understanding of the subconscious mind, suggesting that beyond our personal history lies a vast, inherited psychological realm he called the collective unconscious. This is a psychic foundation shared by all of humanity, populated by universal, primordial patterns or images he termed archetypes. These are not memories in the personal sense, but innate predispositions to experience and perceive the world in certain ways, the psychological blueprints for common human experiences like birth, death, love, struggle, and the divine. Tonight, we will explore two of the most fundamental and personally relevant of these archetypes, the two that form the primary interface between our inner world and our outer life, the persona and the shadow. Understanding this pair is to understand the constant negotiation between who we present to the world and who we are in our hidden depths. This is a profound secret of the subconscious, a mystery of identity that invites deep relaxation through the gentle, honest contemplation of both our light and our darkness as you fall asleep. Let us first consider the persona. The word comes from the Latin for the mask worn by actors in ancient theater, and this is a perfect metaphor for its function. The persona is the social mask we wear, the version of ourselves that we present to the external world. It is our public face, the collection of roles, attitudes, and behaviors we adopt to navigate society effectively and to make a particular impression on others. We have a persona for our role as a professional, another for our role as a friend, another for our role as a child to our parents, and so on. The persona is not inherently fake or bad. It is an absolutely necessary and adaptive part of the psyche. It is the mediator between our individual ego and the demands of the social world. It allows for social cohesion, politeness, and the smooth functioning of society. It protects our more vulnerable private self from constant exposure and scrutiny. A well-developed, flexible persona is a sign of good psychological health, allowing us to adapt appropriately to different social situations. However, problems arise from a psychological phenomenon Jung called identification. This occurs when the ego, our conscious sense of self, becomes completely identified with the persona. We start to believe that we are the mask we wear. A person might become so identified with their role as the successful doctor, or the tough businessman, or the kind, selfless mother, that they lose touch with all the parts of themselves that do not fit into that neat, socially acceptable package. They become a two-dimensional character rather than a complex, three-dimensional human being. Their life becomes a performance, driven by the need for social approval and validation, rather than authentic self-expression. The danger of over-identification with the persona is a loss of connection to one's true whole self, leading to feelings of emptiness, alienation, and a sense of being an imposter, even amidst great external success. The subconscious mind, in its quest for wholeness, may then try to send signals, through dreams, moods, or neurotic symptoms, that something vital is being neglected. This brings us to the other side of the coin, the part of ourselves that is typically excluded from the persona, the shadow. The shadow is one of Jung's most powerful and essential concepts. It is the dark side of our personality, the archetype that contains all the parts of ourselves that we have repressed, denied, or are simply unaware of because they are inconsistent with our conscious self-image and our persona. The shadow is the repository for our hidden desires, our socially unacceptable impulses, our primitive instincts, our perceived weaknesses, our shame, our envy, our greed, our anger. It is everything we do not want to be, everything we have been taught is bad or unacceptable. Because we are ashamed or afraid of these parts, we push them down into the darkness of the subconscious mind. The mindfuck of the shadow is that the more we repress it, the more powerful and autonomous it can become. A repressed shadow does not disappear. It operates in the dark, often projecting itself onto others. This is the psychological mechanism of projection. We fail to see our own greed, selfishness, or anger, but we become acutely and often self-righteously critical of those same traits when we perceive them in other people or groups. The things that irritate us most intensely in others are often unrecognized aspects of our own shadow. The more vehemently we deny a trait in ourselves, the more likely we are to be unconsciously acting it out or projecting it onto the other. An unacknowledged shadow can lead to hypocrisy, prejudice, uncontrollable outbursts of rage, and self-sabotaging behavior. It can possess us from behind, causing us to do things that our conscious ego cannot understand or accept. However, Jung insisted that the shadow is not purely evil. It is simply everything that is unconscious and unacknowledged. Alongside our negative traits, the shadow can also contain positive qualities that we have repressed for some reason. It might hold our undeveloped creativity, our assertiveness, our spontaneity, our connection to our instincts, parts of ourselves that may have been disapproved of in childhood or did not fit into our chosen persona. This is sometimes called the golden shadow. A person who has identified too strongly with a persona of being purely rational and intellectual might have a shadow that is rich with emotion, intuition, and artistic potential. The goal of Jungian psychology is not to eliminate the shadow, which is impossible as every light must cast a shadow, but to engage in the lifelong process of shadow integration. This means courageously and compassionately turning our awareness inward, to acknowledge, withdraw our projections, and consciously integrate these hidden aspects into our whole personality. It is the difficult work of admitting, this too is a part of me. By bringing the shadow's contents into the light of consciousness, we can reduce their destructive, autonomous power. We can learn to manage our anger, understand our greed, and harness the raw energy of our instincts for creative and constructive purposes. Integrating the shadow makes us not perfect, but whole. It is a process that leads to greater authenticity, self-awareness, compassion, and psychological maturity. It is the process of becoming a three-dimensional human being, rather than a two-dimensional mask. This dynamic between the persona and the shadow is a central drama of our inner lives. It is the constant tension between our public presentation and our private reality, between what we show the world and what we hide from ourselves. This psychology mystery lies in the subtle ways these forces interact, the ways our hidden shadow influences our conscious choices, and the lifelong journey of bringing them into a more conscious and harmonious balance. As you continue to fall asleep, gently contemplate the masks you wear in your life, your various personas. Acknowledge their necessity, their function in navigating the social world. Now, without judgment, gently turn your awareness to the concept of your shadow. The hidden parts, the disowned feelings, the untapped potentials that lie beneath the surface. You do not need to confront them directly. Simply acknowledge that they exist, that wholeness includes both light and dark. Find deep relaxation in the idea of integration, the possibility of a more authentic, more complete self. Let go of the need to be perfect and embrace the call to be whole. Resting peacefully, allowing all the different parts of your psyche, seen and unseen, to coexist in the quiet acceptance of sleep. The collective unconscious. Having explored the personal layers of the subconscious, the Freudian drama and the Jungian shadow, let us now venture into the deepest, most mysterious and most controversial aspect of Carl Jung's thought. We journey beyond the personal, beyond the memories and experiences of a single lifetime, into the realm of the collective unconscious. Jung proposed that beneath the individual unconscious lies a deeper, transpersonal layer of the psyche that is shared by all of humanity. This is not a repository of personal memories, but an inherited reservoir of psychic potential, a kind of psychic DNA passed down through generations. This collective unconscious, he argued, is the source of the universal patterns, themes, and symbols that appear in the myths, religions, fairy tales, and dreams of all cultures, across all of history. The idea of an inherited, shared psychic foundation is a profound psychology mystery, a mindfuck that questions the very boundaries of the individual self and suggests we are all connected at a deep, subconscious level to a common human heritage. Let the idea of this ancient, inner world gently expand your sense of self as you fall asleep. Jung arrived at this radical hypothesis through his extensive work with his patients' dreams and his deep immersion in the study of world mythology, religion, and alchemy. He began to notice recurring patterns and images in his patients' dreams that could not be explained by their personal experiences alone. A modern, educated person might dream of a complex mythological motif from an ancient culture they had never studied. These images often had a powerful, numinous quality, feeling more significant than ordinary personal dreams. Jung called these universal patterns archetypes. As we briefly touched upon, archetypes are the structural components of the collective unconscious. They are not specific images or ideas, but rather innate, universal predispositions to experience and perceive the world in certain characteristic ways. They are like psychic instincts, empty frameworks that are filled in with the content of our personal and cultural experience. Think of the mother archetype. We are all born with an innate predisposition to experience a mothering principle, a source of nurturing, comfort, fertility, but also potentially a devouring or smothering force. This archetype is then projected onto our personal mother, but it also shapes our experiences of Mother Nature, our homeland, motherland, and other nurturing figures or institutions. The archetype itself is universal. Its specific manifestation in our lives is personal. The collective unconscious is teeming with such archetypes. The hero archetype represents the universal pattern of overcoming obstacles, confronting darkness, and achieving a higher state of being. The myths of heroes from every culture, Hercules, Buddha, King Arthur, Luke Skywalker, all follow this fundamental archetypal pattern. The shadow, which we just explored, is another universal archetype, representing the disowned parts of the self. The wise old man or wise old woman, Senex, represents the archetype of wisdom, guidance, and meaning. The anima, the inner feminine in a man, and animus, the inner masculine in a woman, represent the archetypal patterns of the soul and our connection to the inner world of feeling and spirit. The self is the central archetype, representing the drive towards wholeness, integration, and the totality of the psyche, often symbolized by mandalas or other images of centeredness. From Jung's perspective, the myths and religions of the world are not just primitive attempts at science or fanciful stories. They are the grand, collective dreams of humanity, the natural expressions of the archetypes of the collective unconscious. They are the psyche's way of describing its own structure and dynamics in symbolic, metaphorical language. By studying these myths, we can gain insight into the deep, universal patterns that shape all human experience. A myth about a hero slaying a dragon is not just a story, it is a symbolic representation of the ego's necessary struggle to confront and integrate the destructive power of the unconscious. The dragon, a manifestation of the devouring mother or the shadow. The mind-fuck of the collective unconscious is its radical challenge to our modern, individualistic sense of self. It suggests that our psyche is not an isolated, self-contained entity, but is rooted in a deep, shared psychic soil. It means that the stories and symbols of ancient cultures are not just historical artifacts, but are living realities within our own subconscious mind. The gods and demons of ancient myth are not external beings, but personifications of the powerful archetypal forces that operate within us. Our personal psychological dramas are often individual enactments of these universal, timeless patterns. This questions the very idea of a purely personal psychology, suggesting that to truly understand ourselves, we must also understand the myths and symbols of the human race. How could such a collective unconscious be transmitted? Jung himself was not entirely clear on the mechanism, suggesting it was inherited in a way similar to our physical instincts. In a modern context, we might speculate about genetic memory, epigenetic inheritance, or the deep structural constraints imposed by our shared human brain architecture. Or perhaps it is transmitted through the deep structures embedded in language and culture, which we internalize from the moment of birth. The precise mechanism remains a profound mystery, which is one reason why the concept is often viewed with skepticism by mainstream academic psychology, which prefers more empirically testable hypotheses. However, whether one accepts the collective unconscious as a literal inherited structure or as a powerful metaphor, its value lies in its ability to connect our personal experiences to a larger, transpersonal context. It can help us see that our personal struggles are often not just our problems, but are part of the universal human condition. It provides a rich vocabulary of symbols and myths for understanding the deep, often non-rational forces at play in our lives. Engaging with this realm through dream work, art, or the study of myth can be a profound source of meaning, guidance, and psychological healing. As you continue to relax deeply, allow your sense of individual self to soften and expand. Imagine your own mind as a single island, but recognize that beneath the waters, all islands are connected to the same vast, underlying earth. This is the collective unconscious, a shared psychic heritage filled with the myths and symbols of a million years of human experience. You do not need to understand it all. Simply acknowledge the possibility of this deep connection. Feel the resonance of ancient stories and timeless patterns within the quiet of your own being. Find peace in the idea that you are not alone in your deepest struggles and aspirations, but are part of a grand, ongoing human story, resting calmly, supported by the deep, mysterious, and shared foundations of the human psyche as you fall asleep. The Anima and Animus, inner masculine and feminine. Having explored the persona and the shadow, the masks we wear and the darkness we hide, let us now journey even deeper into the archetypal landscape of the collective unconscious as mapped by Carl Jung. Here we encounter two of the most profound, mysterious, and influential archetypes that shape our inner world, our relationships, and our quest for wholeness. These are the Anima and the Animus. In Jung's model, the Anima is the unconscious, inner feminine side of a man, while the Animus is the unconscious, inner masculine side of a woman. These are not about external gender roles, but about deep, contrasexual psychological principles and energies that reside within each of us. The Anima and Animus act as our soul image, the inner figures that connect our conscious ego to the vast, mysterious depths of the subconscious mind. Understanding these archetypes is to understand the source of our projections in love, the nature of our creativity, and the path towards a more integrated and balanced self. This is a deep secret of the subconscious, a mystery of inner synergy that invites profound relaxation through the contemplation of the sacred marriage within as you fall asleep. Let's begin with the Anima, the inner feminine within the male psyche. Jung proposed that a man's experience of women, beginning with his mother and continuing through all his relationships, combines with the innate, archetypal potential for the feminine to create a complex, autonomous inner figure. The Anima represents the principle of Eros, the capacity for relatedness, connection, emotionality, intuition, and creativity. She is the source of a man's moods, his feelings, his sensitivities, and his connection to nature, art, and the irrational, symbolic world of the unconscious. In dreams and fantasies, she may appear as a muse, a goddess, a mysterious seductress, a spiritual guide, or a damsel in distress, her form reflecting the man's current relationship with this inner feminine energy. A man's relationship with his Anima is crucial to his psychological development. If his relationship is unconscious and undeveloped, he may fall victim to her negative aspects. He might be moody, sentimental, irritable, or prone to emotional outbursts that he cannot control. His Anima remains a powerful, autonomous force in his subconscious mind, influencing his behavior from behind the scenes. In his external life, he might be unconsciously driven by a search for his soulmate, projecting his idealized Anima image onto a real woman, falling passionately in an almost obsessive love. This is the state of being Anima-possessed. He is not relating to the real woman in front of him, but to the archetypal image she carries for him. This projection is bound to lead to disappointment, as no real person can live up to the perfection of an archetypal image. The work of psychological maturity for a man, in Jung's view, involves withdrawing this projection, differentiating his inner feminine from the outer women in his life, and building a conscious, respectful relationship with his own Anima. By doing so, he integrates her positive qualities into his own personality, becoming more related, more creative, more emotionally aware, and more whole. His Anima ceases to be an autonomous, mood-making force and becomes a true soul guide, a bridge to the creative depths of the collective unconscious. Now, let us turn to the Animus, the inner masculine within the female psyche. Just as the Anima represents the Eros principle of relatedness, the Animus represents the Logos principle of reason, logic, structure, and focused thought. He is the inner figure shaped by a woman's experiences with men, starting with her father, combined with the innate masculine archetype. The Animus is the source of a woman's opinions, her sense of agency and assertiveness, her ability to think strategically, and her connection to the world of ideas and spirit. In dreams, he might appear as a powerful father figure, a romantic hero, a wise teacher, a committee of stern judges, or even a threatening aggressor, his form reflecting the state of her inner masculine energy. Similarly, an unconscious relationship with the Animus can be problematic. A woman who is Animus-possessed may be dominated by rigid, dogmatic, and often critical opinions. "I know this is how things are." Her thinking can be argumentative and overly abstract, disconnected from feeling and relationship. She might unconsciously seek a man who can carry her projected Animus, a hero or genius whom she idealizes, or she might be drawn to power struggles and arguments in her relationships. The work of integration for a woman involves becoming aware of her own inner masculine energy, withdrawing her projections from the men in her life, and developing a conscious relationship with her Animus. By integrating his positive qualities, she can develop her own assertiveness, clarity of thought, and spiritual courage. Her Animus transforms from a source of rigid, unconscious opinions into a creative and empowering inner partner, providing focus, discrimination, and a bridge to her own deep understanding. The mindfuck of the Anima and Animus lies in their profound challenge to our conventional understanding of gender and identity. Jung's theory suggests that we are all, psychologically speaking, androgynous. A man is not fully masculine without a conscious relationship to his inner feminine. A woman is not fully feminine without a conscious relationship to her inner masculine. Wholeness, or individuation as Jung called it, requires the integration of these opposite energies, a kind of sacred inner marriage or syzygy. This concept radically undermines simplistic, one-sided gender roles and points towards a more complex, integrated, and balanced vision of human potential. It suggests that our most compelling romantic attractions are often driven by the projection of these powerful, unconscious soul images, and that the path of true relationship involves withdrawing these projections and seeing the other person for who they truly are, while simultaneously doing the inner work of integrating our own contrasexual side. The mystery of these archetypes lies in their origin and their autonomy. Why does the human psyche have this bipolar, contrasexual structure? Is it a product of biological and social conditioning, or does it reflect a deeper, metaphysical reality? Jung believed it was a fundamental structure of the psyche, an inherited pattern from the collective unconscious. The way these figures appear in dreams with their own will and voice, often offering insights or challenges that the conscious ego is unaware of, points to their autonomous nature within the subconscious. They are not just concepts. They are experienced as living inner personalities. They are the personification of the other, within. Contemplating the Anima and Animus is an invitation to explore the full spectrum of your own psychological being. It is a call to honor the parts of yourself that may not align with conventional gender expectations. For a man, it is an invitation to value his feelings, his intuition, his capacity for relationship. For a woman, it is an invitation to value her reason, her assertiveness, her independent thought. It is a path towards becoming a more complete and balanced human being. As you continue to fall asleep, gently bring your awareness to the inner landscape of your psyche. Contemplate the idea of an inner counterpart, a soul image that embodies the qualities of the opposite gender. For men, the anima, the source of feeling and creative mystery. For women, the animus, the source of clarity and focused spirit. You do not need to have a clear image. Simply hold the concept of an inner other that completes you, a bridge to the deepest parts of your subconscious mind. Find deep relaxation in the idea of inner wholeness, of a sacred marriage between the masculine and feminine principles within you. Let go of rigid identities and embrace the full androgynous potential of your being, resting peacefully, allowing all aspects of your psyche to come into a gentle, harmonious balance in the quiet of sleep. The mystery of intuition. Beyond the structured dramas of the Freudian psyche and the mythic depths of the collective unconscious, there lies a more immediate and personal manifestation of the subconscious mind's power, the phenomenon of intuition. We have all felt its presence. It is the sudden gut feeling that a situation is wrong, the inexplicable hunch that a certain path is the right one, the flash of insight that solves a problem we've been struggling with for days, the quiet, inner voice that seems to offer guidance. Intuition is a form of knowing that arrives without the deliberate, step-by-step process of conscious, analytical thought. It is a direct, immediate, and often holistic apprehension of a situation or a truth. But what is this mysterious faculty? Is it a form of psychic or paranormal perception, a message from a higher self or a spiritual guide? Or is it the product of incredibly rapid, sophisticated, non-conscious information processing happening deep within the brain? The mystery of intuition represents one of the most fascinating and practical secrets of the subconscious mind, questioning the supremacy of our rational, logical thinking and inviting us to learn how to listen to the profound intelligence of our unseen mind. Contemplating this quiet, inner guidance can be a powerful pathway to deep relaxation and self-trust as you fall asleep. From the perspective of modern cognitive science and psychology, intuition is not a magical or supernatural process. Rather, it is understood as the output of the cognitive unconscious engaging in rapid parallel processing of vast amounts of information. Your conscious mind is a serial processor. It can only focus on one thing at a time, proceeding in a linear, logical fashion. Your subconscious mind, however, is a massive parallel processor, capable of simultaneously analyzing countless streams of data from your past experiences, your stored knowledge, your emotional states, and your subtle sensory perceptions of the current environment. Intuition is the executive summary of this immense, non-conscious computation, delivered to your conscious awareness as a holistic feeling, an image, or a sudden certainty. You don't get to see the complex calculations, only the final result, which is why it feels so immediate and sometimes inexplicable. It is, in essence, a form of highly advanced unconscious pattern recognition. Let's consider the intuition of an expert. A master chess player doesn't consciously analyze every possible move on the board. Often they can glance at a complex position and immediately feel that a certain move is the best one. This is not magic. It is their subconscious mind, trained by tens of thousands of hours of practice and study, instantly recognizing patterns and evaluating possibilities based on a vast, implicitly stored library of past games and positions. Their intuition is a form of highly refined, automated expertise. Similarly, an experienced doctor might have a hunch about a rare diagnosis based on a constellation of subtle symptoms that don't immediately fit a textbook pattern. This hunch is likely the result of their subconscious mind making connections and recognizing similarities to past cases stored deep in their memory, all happening far faster than conscious deliberation could manage. But intuition is not limited to experts. In our social lives, it is constantly at work. When you meet someone new and get an instant good vibe, or bad vibe, you are likely not just reacting to their words. Your subconscious mind is processing a torrent of nonverbal cues, their facial microexpressions, their posture, their tone of voice, their scent. It is comparing this data to every other person you have ever met, accessing a vast, implicit database of social experience. The resulting gut feeling is a complex, data-driven assessment of trustworthiness and disposition, delivered to you in the simple, binary language of feeling good or feeling uneasy. We are all, in a sense, experts in reading the subtle signals of human interaction, and intuition is the report from that expert system. The mindfuck of intuition is its challenge to the cultural premium we often place on conscious, rational, and articulable thought. We are often taught to distrust feelings and to rely only on what we can prove with logic and evidence. Intuition presents a different way of knowing, one that is holistic, associative, and often preverbal. The mystery lies in the fact that this non-conscious form of intelligence can sometimes be more accurate and powerful than our deliberate conscious reasoning, especially in complex, ambiguous, or rapidly changing situations where there is too much information for the conscious mind to handle. It questions the idea that our conscious ego is the smartest part of our psyche. It suggests that our deepest wisdom may lie in the silent, unseen processes of the subconscious. However, it is crucial to recognize that intuition is not infallible. It is only as good as the data and experience it is based on. Our subconscious minds are also home to our implicit biases, our unresolved fears, and our irrational associations. A gut feeling of distrust towards someone could be a genuine perception of subtle negative cues, or it could be the product of an unconscious stereotype or a past trauma being projected onto the present situation. A powerful hunch could be a brilliant creative leap, or it could be a form of wishful thinking. The challenge and the art of working with intuition is learning to distinguish between a clear, quiet signal from the deep, data-rich subconscious and the noisy, emotionally charged static of our fears and biases. This often requires cultivating a state of inner quiet, mindfulness, and self-honesty. How can we cultivate a better relationship with our intuition? The first step is to simply acknowledge its existence and value. We must give ourselves permission to listen to these quieter, non-rational forms of knowing. Practices like meditation and mindfulness are essential, as they help to quiet the constant chatter of the conscious mind, creating the inner stillness necessary to perceive the subtler whispers of intuition. Spending time in nature, engaging in creative activities, or simply allowing for unstructured periods of daydreaming can also create space for intuitive insights to emerge. Paying attention to our dreams and the symbols they present can be another powerful way to access the associative logic of the subconscious. Keeping a journal can help us track our hunches and see how often they prove accurate, building trust in our intuitive faculty over time. And crucially, paying attention to our embodied sensations, the literal gut feelings, the tension in our shoulders, the sense of expansion in our chest, is key, as the subconscious often communicates its wisdom through the language of the body. The secret of the subconscious mind revealed by intuition is that we are in a constant, dynamic dialogue with a part of ourselves that is vastly more perceptive and computationally powerful than our conscious awareness. Our subconscious is not just a passive storehouse. It is an active, intelligent partner, constantly processing our world and offering guidance. The challenge is to learn its language, a language not of linear logic but of feelings, images, and holistic sensations. As you continue to fall asleep, bring your awareness to the quiet, receptive center of your being. Let go of the need to consciously figure everything out, and simply create a space to listen. Listen to the gentle rhythm of your breath. Listen to the silence between thoughts. This is the space where intuition's whisper can be heard. Trust in the deep intelligence of your unseen mind, the part of you that is always processing, always connecting, always looking out for your highest good. Find deep relaxation in surrendering to this deeper wisdom, knowing that you don't have to carry the burden of figuring everything out with your conscious mind alone. You are supported by the vast, mysterious, and profoundly intelligent depths of your own subconscious, resting peacefully, listening to the quiet guidance from within. Gut feelings, the science of interoception. We have just explored the mysterious faculty of intuition, the hunches and insights that seem to bubble up from the depths of the subconscious mind. We often describe these experiences with deeply physical language. We speak of a gut feeling, of a heavy heart, of shivers down the spine. This language is not merely metaphorical. It points to a profound and increasingly understood secret of the subconscious, the deep, intimate connection between our mind and our body's internal state. This connection is facilitated by a lesser-known sense called interoception. Interoception is the perception of sensations from inside the body. It is your brain's ability to sense and interpret the internal signals of your organs, your viscera, your heartbeat, your breath, your gut. The emerging science of interoception reveals that these gut feelings are not just vague emotions, but are rooted in a real, constant stream of biological data flowing from your body to your brain. The mystery lies in how this raw physiological information is translated into the nuanced feelings, intuitions, and even decisions that shape our lives, questioning the very idea of a disembodied mind and inviting deep relaxation through listening to the quiet wisdom of your own body as you fall asleep. Let's begin by understanding the vast, silent conversation happening within you at all times. Your body is a universe of activity. Your heart beats, your lungs expand and contract, your digestive system processes food, your immune system patrols for threats, your hormones ebb and flow. A vast network of nerves, including the powerful vagus nerve, constantly carries information about this internal state from your body up to your brain. This is the bottom-up stream of interoceptive data. Most of this processing happens far below the level of conscious awareness. Your brain automatically regulates your heart rate, digestion, and temperature without you having to think about it. This is the domain of the unconscious nervous system. Interoception, however, is the process by which this information begins to bubble up and influence our conscious and subconscious mind. The brain, particularly in regions like the insular cortex, integrates these signals to create a high-level map of your body's overall state of being. This integrated map is the very foundation of your most basic feelings. Feelings of energy or fatigue, of comfort or discomfort, of calmness or agitation. Before you can feel a complex emotion like sadness or joy, you first have a more fundamental, interoceptive feeling of your body's physiological state. This is where gut feelings come from. The gut, often called the second brain, contains a vast and complex network of neurons, the enteric nervous system, and a rich ecosystem of microbes, the microbiome, both of which are in constant communication with the brain via the vagus nerve. When you have a gut feeling that something is right or wrong, it is likely the conscious manifestation of your brain interpreting a complex pattern of signals coming from your viscera. Perhaps a stressful or threatening situation is causing subtle changes in your gut motility, your heart rate, and your hormonal balance. Your subconscious mind, the master of unconscious pattern recognition, processes these signals long before your conscious mind has had time to logically analyze the situation. It then delivers its verdict to your awareness as a simple, powerful, embodied sensation. A knot in your stomach, a feeling of unease, a gut instinct to trust or distrust someone. Your body is thinking and your gut feeling is its conclusion. This has profound implications for our understanding of emotion and decision-making. The neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's somatic marker hypothesis proposes that our rational decisions are guided by these interoceptive, emotional signals. When we consider a course of action, our brain unconsciously simulates the potential outcomes and generates an associated somatic marker, a faint, gut-level emotional response based on past experiences. A choice that previously led to a negative outcome might trigger a subtle, unpleasant gut feeling, nudging us away from that option, while a choice associated with past rewards might trigger a positive feeling, encouraging us to pursue it. In this view, rational thought is not a cold, disembodied process. It is deeply intertwined with and dependent upon the stream of emotional, interoceptive feedback from the body. People with damage to the brain regions that process these signals often struggle to make effective personal and social decisions, even if their logical reasoning abilities remain intact. They know what to do, but they can't feel it. The mind fuck of interoception is its radical regrounding of our mental life in our physical flesh. It questions the top-down view of a mind that commands a body. Instead, it reveals a continuous, reciprocal conversation. Our bodies are not just passive recipients of the brain's commands. They are constantly speaking to the brain, providing the foundational feelings and intuitions that shape our thoughts, moods, and choices. The reality of your emotional world is, in a very real sense, created by the perception of your internal biological state. The mystery of interoception lies in its variability and its potential for cultivation. People vary significantly in their interoceptive awareness, their ability to accurately perceive internal bodily sensations. Research suggests that individuals with higher interoceptive sensitivity may experience emotions more intensely and may be better at regulating their emotional responses. They may also be more attuned to their intuition. This raises the fascinating possibility that we can train our interoceptive sense. Practices like mindfulness meditation, yoga, and body scan exercises are, in essence, forms of interoceptive training. They involve deliberately and non-judgmentally paying attention to the subtle sensations within the body, the breath, the heartbeat, areas of tension or ease. By practicing this, we can develop a clearer, more high-resolution perception of our own internal state, potentially leading to greater emotional intelligence, better self-regulation, and a stronger connection to our intuition. As you continue to relax deeply, gently turn your attention inward, to the quiet, living universe of your own body. Feel the gentle rhythmic rise and fall of your breath. Can you sense the subtle beat of your heart? Can you feel the warmth or coolness of the air on your skin, the feeling of energy or tiredness in your muscles? This is interoception. This is the language of your body, the source of your most fundamental feelings. You don't need to interpret these signals, simply listen. Acknowledge that your body is constantly communicating with your mind, providing a deep, intuitive wisdom that operates beneath the noise of conscious thought. Find peace in this profound embodied connection. Let go of the idea of a mind separate from a body, and embrace the holistic truth of your integrated self, resting calmly, listening to the quiet, intelligent whispers of your own physiology as you fall asleep. Hypnagogic state, creativity on the edge of sleep. Let us now drift into a fascinating and fleeting borderland of consciousness, a liminal state that exists on the very threshold between waking and sleeping. This is the hypnagogic state. It is that magical, often surreal period when the structured, logical world of your conscious ego begins to dissolve, and the fluid, associative, and symbolic world of the subconscious mind begins to emerge. In this state, you may experience a cascade of vivid, involuntary images, strange sounds, bodily sensations like floating or falling, and fragmented, dreamlike thoughts. For centuries, this state was often dismissed as mere drowsiness, but artists, inventors, and thinkers have long recognized it as a potent source of creativity and insight. The hypnagogic state is a deep psychology mystery, a unique window into the mind's transition from rational thought to the symbolic language of dreams, revealing a secret of the subconscious, that on the very edge of sleep, our minds can access a unique mode of thinking that is fluid, hyper-associative, and profoundly creative. Contemplating this gentle descent into the inner world is a perfect way to begin the process of falling asleep. The term hypnagogia, from the Greek for sleep and guide, describes the experience of this transitional consciousness. Its counterpart, the hypnopompic state, refers to the period of waking up. But it is the hypnagogic state, the entry into sleep, that is most associated with spontaneous, creative imagery. As you begin to relax and your brainwaves shift from the beta waves of active wakefulness to the slower alpha and then theta waves associated with relaxation and the onset of sleep, the rigid control of the prefrontal cortex, the seat of your rational, executive function, begins to loosen. The gatekeeper of consciousness starts to nod off. As this happens, content from the subconscious mind, which is normally filtered and structured by the conscious ego, can begin to bubble up in a more raw and unfiltered form. The experiences within the hypnagogic state are incredibly varied. Many people report seeing intricate, shifting geometric patterns, known as form constants. Others experience a vivid slideshow of random, often disconnected images, faces of strangers, bizarre objects, surreal landscapes. These images are typically fleeting and not part of a coherent narrative like a full-blown dream. You might hear snippets of music, a disembodied voice saying a strange phrase, or even your own name being called. Bodily sensations are also common, particularly the feeling of floating, spinning, or the sudden muscle jerk known as a hypnic jerk, which is often accompanied by a sensation of falling. This is thought to be a misinterpretation by the brain of the body's profound muscle relaxation as a sign of literal, physical falling. What makes this state so fertile for creativity? The hypnagogic state seems to represent a unique blend of conscious and unconscious processing. You are not yet fully asleep, so a sliver of your waking awareness and memory is still present. However, the rigid, logical, and linear thinking of the conscious mind is suspended. This allows for a state of free association on a massive scale. Concepts, images, and memories that would not normally be connected in your rational waking mind can suddenly link together in novel and surprising ways. The brain enters a state of high cognitive fluidity. A problem you have been struggling with consciously, approaching it from a single logical angle, can suddenly be seen from a completely new perspective as the subconscious mind offers up strange, metaphorical, or associative connections. Many of history's great creative and scientific breakthroughs are famously linked to this liminal state. The chemist Auguste Kekulé claimed to have discovered the ring structure of the benzene molecule after a hypnagogic reverie of a snake seizing its own tail, an ancient archetypal symbol known as the Ouroboros. The artist Salvador Dali used a technique he called the slumber with a key, where he would doze off in a chair holding a heavy key over a metal plate. The moment he fell fully asleep, his hand would relax, the key would drop and clang on the plate, waking him up so he could capture the surreal images from his hypnagogic state for his paintings. The inventor Thomas Edison used a similar method with steel balls to capture insights from this creative threshold. These brilliant minds understood that the edge of sleep was a place where the rational mind got out of the way, allowing the vast, pattern-matching power of the unconscious pattern recognition system to work its magic. The mind fuck of the hypnagogic state is the realization that your mind possesses entirely different modes of thinking, and that the state we value most highly, focused, rational consciousness, is not necessarily the most creative one. It questions the idea that insight is always the result of deliberate, effortful work. It suggests that sometimes the most profound solutions and most original ideas come not from thinking harder, but from letting go, from relaxing the grip of the conscious ego and allowing the subconscious to play freely. It is a state where the distinction between thought, image, and sensation becomes blurred. You don't just think of an idea, you might see it, hear it, or feel it. This multisensory, symbolic way of thinking is the native language of the subconscious, and the hypnagogic state is our clearest chance to witness it while retaining a thread of waking awareness. The psychology mystery of this state lies in its precise neurological underpinnings and its relationship to the full dream state, REM sleep, that follows. Is it simply the loading screen for the dream world, the chaotic process of different brain regions beginning to desynchronize from waking reality? Or is it a functionally distinct state with its own purpose, perhaps related to creative problem solving or emotional processing? Research into this area is challenging, as the state is transient and difficult to sustain. Yet, it remains a tantalizing frontier for understanding the full spectrum of human consciousness. You can learn to become more aware of your own hypnagogic experiences. The key is to approach sleep not as an abrupt on-off switch, but as a gradual descent. As you lie here deeply relaxed, you are already on that path. Instead of focusing on your thoughts, you can adopt a state of gentle, passive awareness. Notice any fleeting images, colors, patterns, or sounds that might drift through your mind as you get closer to sleep. Do not try to hold on to them or analyze them. Simply observe them as you would watch clouds drifting across the sky. This is the spontaneous creativity of your own subconscious mind beginning its nightly dance. By paying gentle attention to this threshold, you can become more familiar with the symbolic, associative language of your own inner world. As you continue your journey towards sleep, allow the structured, logical part of your mind to soften, to dissolve. Give yourself permission to enter the gentle, fluid, and unpredictable world of the hypnagogic state. Welcome the fleeting images, the strange thoughts, the nonsensical phrases. See them not as random noise, but as the sparks of your mind's deep creativity, the first whispers from your unseen mind. This is the fertile ground where new ideas are born, where problems are solved in unexpected ways. Find deep relaxation in this letting go of control, in surrendering to the gentle, surreal flow of your own mind's descent, resting peacefully on the creative, mysterious, and beautiful edge of sleep. Freudian slips, errors that reveal hidden truths? Let us now turn our attention to the small, often amusing, and sometimes embarrassing errors that pepper our daily lives. The slip of the tongue, the misreading of a word, the temporary forgetting of a familiar name. For most of modern psychology, these are simply cognitive glitches, harmless errors in speech production or memory retrieval caused by fatigue, distraction, or the brain's complex neural processing hitting a temporary snag. But for Sigmund Freud, these were not random accidents at all. He believed they were profound secrets of the subconscious mind bursting through into the open. These errors, which he called parapraxis, but are now universally known as Freudian slips, were, in his view, windows into our hidden desires, repressed thoughts, and unconscious conflicts. Is a simple slip of the tongue really just a mistake, or could it be a meaningful message from the depths of our psyche? This psychology mystery questions the very nature of error and intention, suggesting that even our mistakes are not without meaning, and that the subconscious mind is always seeking a way to make itself known. Let us gently explore this fascinating and controversial idea as we fall asleep. Freud's theory of parapraxis is a cornerstone of his work, The Psychopathology of Everyday Life. He argued that there are no true accidents in our mental lives. Every mental event, including seemingly insignificant errors, has a cause and a meaning, typically rooted in unconscious processes. A Freudian slip, then, is a faulty action, where the intended conscious action is thwarted by the interference of an unconscious, repressed wish or thought. The error is, in fact, a successful, albeit disguised, expression of the subconscious. It is a compromise between the conscious intention and the hidden desire. The ego's control momentarily falters, and a piece of the ID's raw, repressed content breaks through the surface, often in a distorted or symbolic form. Let's consider the classic example: a man intending to say to his partner, "I'm so glad we're together," accidentally says, "I'm so sad we're together." The cognitive psychologist might explain this as a simple phonological error. Glad and sad are similar sounding words, and a momentary lapse in attention caused the wrong one to be selected. Freud, however, would look for a deeper, unconscious meaning. Perhaps the man harbors a repressed, hidden desire to end the relationship, or feelings of sadness and dissatisfaction that his conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. The slip of the tongue is not an error, but a leakage of the truth from his subconscious mind. The mistake reveals a hidden ambivalence that his conscious persona tries to conceal. This concept applies to a wide range of everyday errors. Forgetting someone's name, Freud might argue, is not a simple memory lapse, but an unconscious act of hostility or devaluation towards that person. Forgetting to mail a letter might be a sign of an unconscious resistance to its contents or its recipient. Misreading a word in a text as another, more personally charged word could reveal an underlying preoccupation or wish. Losing a valued object might be a self-punishing act driven by unconscious guilt. In every case, Freud saw these slips not as random noise, but as meaningful symbols, clues to be deciphered to understand the hidden dynamics of the psyche. The mind fuck of the Freudian slip is its radical reinterpretation of our own fallibility. It suggests that we are never fully in control of our own words or actions, that our subconscious mind has its own agency and is constantly seeking expression, sometimes by hijacking our conscious intentions. It questions the very notion of a simple mistake. It implies that a hidden layer of meaning and desire underlies even our most mundane moments, and that our own language can betray our deepest secrets without our consent. It is a humbling and, for some, unsettling idea, suggesting a constant, hidden battle for control within our own minds. Of course, Freud's theory of slips is highly controversial and is not widely accepted by mainstream cognitive psychology today. The primary objection is that it is unfalsifiable and relies on subjective interpretation. If a slip occurs, the Freudian analyst can always find a plausible, post hoc unconscious meaning to attach to it. If no slip occurs, it simply means the ego's defenses were successful in that moment. There is no way to scientifically prove or disprove that a specific slip was caused by a specific unconscious wish. The more parsimonious explanation, preferred by cognitive science, is that these errors are simply processing mistakes. The brain's speech production system is incredibly complex, involving the rapid coordination of semantic, syntactic, and phonological information. It is inevitable that this system will occasionally produce errors, especially when we are tired, distracted, or thinking about multiple things at once. The similarity in sound or meaning between the intended word and the uttered word can be explained by how our mental lexicon is organized, without needing to invoke repressed desires. However, even if we do not accept Freud's theory in its entirety, the concept of the Freudian slip retains a powerful hold on our cultural imagination, and it serves as a valuable metaphor for a deeper truth. While not every slip may reveal a deep, dark secret, it is undeniable that our state of mind does influence our propensity for error. When we are preoccupied, anxious, or have a strong, unexpressed feeling, we are more likely to make slips that seem suspiciously relevant to our inner state. The slip might not be the direct voice of the ID, but it can be a leak from a preconscious thought or a feeling that is demanding our attention. The error might not be a truth, but it can be a meaningful clue, a signpost pointing towards an area of our inner life that we have been neglecting. The mystery lies in this ambiguity. Where is the line between a random cognitive glitch and a meaningful psychological revelation? Can we ever know for sure? Perhaps the value of the concept is not in its scientific accuracy, but in its power as an invitation to self-reflection. When we make a slip of the tongue or forget something important, instead of simply dismissing it as a mistake, we can choose to pause and ask with gentle curiosity, is there anything more to this? What was on my mind? What am I feeling right now? This act of gentle inquiry can sometimes open up surprising insights into our own hidden desires, fears, and motivations. As you continue to fall asleep, allow your mind to become soft and forgiving. Contemplate the small errors, the slips, the moments of forgetfulness that happen in daily life. See them not as failures, but perhaps as whispers from the deeper parts of yourself. Acknowledge the Freudian perspective, that these might be messages from the subconscious mind. And acknowledge the cognitive perspective, that they might be simple processing errors. Find deep relaxation in holding both possibilities at once. Let go of the need for absolute certainty, and instead, cultivate a gentle curiosity about your own inner workings. Find peace in the idea that your mind is a complex, mysterious, and wonderfully imperfect system. Resting calmly, allowing both its intentions and its errors to exist without judgment, in the quiet acceptance of sleep. The nature of dreams. Each night, as we surrender to sleep, our conscious mind relinquishes control and we descend into an extraordinary, alternate reality. We enter the world of dreams. In this realm, the laws of physics are suspended, time becomes elastic, and we experience vivid, often bizarre, narratives populated by familiar faces and strange apparitions. We spend a significant portion of our lives, years in total, immersed in these nightly dramas. But why? What is the fundamental nature of dreams? Are they, as Sigmund Freud famously proposed, the disguised fulfillment of our deepest hidden desires and repressed wishes, a secret language of the soul that can be deciphered? Or are they, as many modern neuroscientists suggest, a more pragmatic, biological process, a form of nightly brain maintenance, a random byproduct of memory consolidation and neural housekeeping? This profound debate, wish fulfillment versus brain maintenance, represents one of the greatest enduring psychology mysteries. It questions the very meaning of our inner lives and the purpose of our nightly descent into unreality, inviting deep relaxation through the calm contemplation of the strange and beautiful theater of the sleeping mind as you fall asleep. Let's begin with the perspective that revolutionized our view of dreams, the theory of wish fulfillment, the cornerstone of Freudian psychoanalysis. In his monumental work, The Interpretation of Dreams, Freud argued that every dream, no matter how nonsensical or anxiety-provoking it may seem on the surface, is a meaningful psychological event. He proposed that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, a privileged window into the deepest, most repressed parts of our psyche. The primary function of a dream, according to Freud, is to satisfy the primal, often socially unacceptable urges of the ID, our instinctual drives, particularly sexual and aggressive ones, that are suppressed during waking life. The dream provides a safe, hallucinatory outlet for these hidden desires, thereby preserving sleep by reducing psychic tension. However, Freud believed these wishes are often too raw or disturbing for our conscious mind to face directly, even in sleep. Therefore, a psychic, censor, or dream work process disguises the true, forbidden meaning of the dream. The dream's true, underlying wish is the latent content. The bizarre, often illogical story that we actually remember is the manifest content. The dream work uses various mechanisms to transform the latent wish into the manifest dream. Condensation fuses multiple ideas or images into one. Displacement shifts emotional significance from a threatening object to a safer one. Symbolism represents forbidden ideas with seemingly innocent images. For the Freudian analyst, the goal is to reverse this process, to interpret the manifest dream symbols and narratives to uncover the repressed, latent wish at its core. In this view, every dream is a coded message from our subconscious mind, a rich, symbolic text waiting to be deciphered. Now, let us turn to the modern, more biologically grounded perspective, which often emphasizes the role of brain maintenance. This view, supported by decades of neuroscience and sleep research, sees dreaming not as primarily symbolic, but as a byproduct or an integral part of essential neurological processes that occur during sleep, particularly during REM, rapid eye movement, sleep. One of the leading theories in this camp is that dreaming is linked to memory consolidation. During the day, we are inundated with information and experiences. Sleep provides a crucial, offline period for the brain to sort through this data. The brain appears to replay and reactivate neural patterns from the day's events, strengthening important memories and synaptic connections, while pruning away weaker, less relevant ones. This helps to integrate new learning into our long-term knowledge networks. The bizarre, often fragmented and emotionally charged narratives of our dreams, in this view, might be the conscious subjective experience of this memory consolidation process. The dream is the screensaver of the mind while the deep, vital work of filing, sorting, and strengthening memories is underway. The seemingly random combination of recent experiences with old memories in our dreams could reflect the brain's attempt to integrate new information into existing schemas. Another prominent neurobiological theory is the activation synthesis hypothesis, proposed by Alan Hobson and Robert McCarley. This theory suggests that during REM sleep, the brainstem sends a barrage of random, chaotic electrical signals, the activation, up to the higher brain centers, particularly the cortex. The cortex, the thinking part of the brain, is a meaning-making machine. When it receives this random input, it does what it always does. It tries to create a coherent story to synthesize the noise into a narrative, however bizarre. A random signal to the visual cortex might be interpreted as seeing a strange object. A random signal to the motor cortex might be interpreted as the sensation of flying or running. A random activation of the limbic system might generate intense emotion. From this perspective, the bizarre content of dreams is largely meaningless in itself. It's just the brain's best attempt to make a story out of random neural static. The process of dreaming might be crucial for brain maintenance, but the content is not a hidden message. These two major perspectives, wish fulfillment and brain maintenance, seem to be in stark opposition. One sees dreams as rich with hidden, personal meaning. The other sees them as largely random byproducts of a biological process. So, which is it? The psychology mystery today lies in the growing recognition that the answer is likely not a simple either/or, but a complex both/and. Modern dream theories often attempt to integrate these views. The neuroscientist Mark Soames, for example, has argued that while the activation synthesis model might correctly identify the neurological engine of dreaming, the activation from the brainstem, it underestimates the role of motivation and meaning in the synthesis part. The forebrain, in its attempt to create a story, doesn't just use random material. It draws upon our deepest concerns, our current emotional state, our hopes, and our fears, the very material Freud was interested in. The random activation might be the spark, but our own personal psychology, including our hidden desires and anxieties, provides the tinder and shapes the nature of the resulting fire. This view sees dreaming as a process where the brain is both maintaining itself and playing with ideas of deep personal significance. Another integrative theory is the threat simulation theory, which suggests dreams evolved as a safe, virtual reality environment to practice and rehearse responses to threatening situations. This would explain why so many dreams are anxiety-provoking or involve worst-case scenarios. It combines a biological, evolutionary function, improving survival skills, with meaningful, if often unpleasant, content. Similarly, the idea that dreams help with emotional regulation suggests a clear biological purpose, maintaining psychological equilibrium, that is achieved through the processing of emotionally charged, meaningful personal content. The mindfuck of the nature of dreams is the radical uncertainty it reveals about a third of our lives. It questions whether this vast portion of our mental existence is a deeply meaningful psychic journey or a largely mechanical process of neurological upkeep. To accept either extreme is to profoundly alter our view of the self. Are we deep, symbolic beings whose every nocturnal fantasy is a clue to our hidden truths? Or are we biological machines whose conscious experience of dreaming is merely the beautiful, ephemeral exhaust of a nightly maintenance cycle? As you continue your journey towards sleep, Allow your mind to float in the liminal space between these powerful ideas. Contemplate the dreams you can recall, their strange logic, their vivid imagery, their emotional weight. Do they feel like messages? Or do they feel like random collages? Acknowledge the profound mystery of this nightly theater. Perhaps dreams are a form of brain maintenance, a vital process of memory consolidation and emotional regulation. And perhaps the way our brain chooses to perform this maintenance is by telling itself stories, by using the language of symbols and desire that is most natural to the subconscious mind. Find deep relaxation in letting go of the need for a single, definitive answer. Embrace your dreams as a mysterious, multifaceted, and essential part of your being, whatever their ultimate purpose may be, resting peacefully, ready to surrender to the strange and wonderful world your own mind will create for you tonight. Dream symbolism. Having contemplated the fundamental nature of dreams, let us now venture deeper into their strange and evocative language. Dreams rarely speak to us in the straightforward, logical prose of our waking lives. Instead, they communicate through a rich, often bizarre, tapestry of images, metaphors, and scenarios, a language of symbols. A dream of flying, a recurring image of a house, the appearance of a mysterious stranger, the loss of one's teeth. These are common dream motifs that feel laden with a significance that transcends their literal meaning. But where does this symbolism come from? Are the symbols in our dreams drawn from a universal, archetypal dictionary shared by all of humanity? Or are they a deeply personal code, created from the unique experiences, memories, and associations of our own individual lives? This debate between universal versus personal meanings lies at the heart of dream interpretation and represents a profound psychology mystery. It questions how our subconscious mind gives form to its hidden desires and fears, and how we can learn to understand its private, poetic language. Let us gently explore the nature of these nightly symbols as you fall asleep. Let's begin with the perspective championed by Carl Jung, which posits the existence of universal symbols. As we've explored, Jung believed that beneath our personal unconscious lies the collective unconscious, an inherited psychic foundation containing archetypes, universal patterns, and primordial images. In this view, many of the most powerful symbols that appear in our dreams are not of our own making, but are expressions of these shared, timeless archetypal patterns. For example, the symbol of a house in a dream, Jung might argue, often represents the dreamer's own psyche. The different floors could correspond to different levels of consciousness. The attic representing higher thought or spirituality, the main floor representing everyday ego awareness, and the dark, unknown basement representing the deep subconscious or the shadow. While the specific style of the house might be personal, the underlying symbolism of house as self is universal. Similarly, other archetypal symbols carry a general, cross-cultural meaning. Water often symbolizes the unconscious mind itself, the emotions, or the flow of life. A journey or a quest can symbolize the process of individuation, the search for wholeness. The appearance of a wise old man or woman might symbolize the emergence of the archetype of wisdom and guidance. A snake, a symbol with immense historical and mythological resonance, could represent danger, poison, and temptation, but also healing, transformation, and renewal, as in the rod of Asclepius, the symbol of medicine. From a Jungian perspective, understanding these universal meanings provides a crucial key for unlocking the message of the dream. The dream is the subconscious using this ancient, symbolic language to communicate with the conscious ego, offering guidance, warnings, or insights into the dreamer's psychological state and developmental path. These symbols are powerful because they connect our small, personal story to the grand, universal myths of humanity. However, this approach must be balanced with the deeply personal meanings that symbols hold for each individual. Sigmund Freud, while also a believer in symbolism, placed a much stronger emphasis on the personal, biographical origins of dream symbols. He saw them primarily as disguised representations of repressed hidden desires and conflicts from an individual's own life, particularly their childhood. For Freud, a symbol's meaning could only be truly understood through the dreamer's own free associations. If a patient dreamed of a snake, Freud would not just consult a universal symbol dictionary. He would ask the patient, "What does a snake bring to your mind?" Perhaps the patient had a traumatic childhood experience with a snake, or perhaps a snake was a beloved pet, or perhaps it was a symbol from a story that was important to them. The meaning of the snake would be unique to that individual's history and psychic landscape. The modern approach to dream symbolism largely embraces an integration of these two views. It acknowledges that some symbols may carry a common, archetypal resonance due to our shared human experiences. We all have mothers, we all experience the cycle of day and night, we all face challenges, while also insisting that the final, most accurate meaning of a symbol is deeply personal and context-dependent. A dream of a tidal wave might universally suggest being overwhelmed. But what the dreamer feels overwhelmed by, their work, a relationship, their own emotions, can only be understood by examining their personal life. The universal meaning provides a starting point, a general theme, but the personal associations provide the specific, actionable insight. The mindfuck of dream symbolism is the realization that our subconscious mind is a prolific and sophisticated poet, constantly creating rich, multi-layered metaphors to express itself. It doesn't use logic, it uses imagery. This questions our waking life's preference for literal, direct communication. It suggests that a part of our mind is always thinking in a more ancient, associative, and symbolic mode. The mystery is how it creates these symbols. How does the brain select the perfect image to represent a complex emotional state or a hidden desire? Does it draw from a universal library of archetypes, or does it creatively weave together fragments of personal memory? The process is a testament to the immense, nonlinear creativity of the unseen mind. Consider some common dream themes and how they might be interpreted through this dual lens. Dreams of flying often feel exhilarating. Archetypally, this can symbolize freedom, transcendence, spiritual elevation, or a powerful sense of personal agency. On a personal level, it might relate to a recent success, a feeling of overcoming a specific obstacle, or a desire to escape a restrictive situation in your waking life. Dreams of being chased are common and anxiety-provoking. Universally, they tap into our primal, evolutionary fear of predation and threat. The chaser is often interpreted as a manifestation of the shadow, the part of ourselves we are running from. Personally, the identity of the chaser, whether it's a monster, a vague figure, or someone you know, provides crucial clues about the specific fear or repressed part of yourself that you are not facing. Dreams of teeth falling out, another common and distressing theme, might tap into universal anxieties about health, appearance, and loss of power. Personally, it could be linked to specific worries about communication, losing your voice, a recent social embarrassment, financial stress, or a feeling of powerlessness in a particular situation. The language of dreams is not a simple code to be cracked with a dictionary. It is a deeply personal art form. The meaning of a dream is not a static fact to be discovered, but a living reality to be experienced and engaged with. The process of working with a dream, of journaling it, of reflecting on its symbols and feeling its emotional tone, is a way of building a bridge between the conscious and subconscious parts of the psyche. As you continue to fall asleep, let go of the need to interpret or analyze your dreams. Instead, simply cultivate an attitude of gentle curiosity and respect for the images and stories that may arise from your subconscious mind tonight. Acknowledge them as a form of communication from the deeper parts of your being, a language of symbols woven from both universal myths and your own personal history. Find deep relaxation in trusting this inner storyteller, knowing that even in sleep, a part of you is always working to process, to communicate, and to guide you towards greater wholeness. Resting peacefully, open to the mysterious, symbolic, and deeply meaningful theater of your own dreams. Lucid dreaming. We have spoken of dreams as a mysterious, involuntary journey into the landscapes of the subconscious mind. But what if it were possible to awaken within the dream itself? What if you could become consciously aware that you are dreaming, and in that state of awareness, interact with the dream world with clarity and intention? This remarkable phenomenon is known as lucid dreaming. It is a hybrid state of consciousness, a bridge between the waking world of the ego and the symbolic, fluid reality of the dream. The ability to become aware in the subconscious world represents a fascinating frontier in the exploration of the mind, a psychology mystery that questions the very boundaries between consciousness and unconsciousness, and between reality and illusion. It offers the tantalizing possibility of not just passively observing our inner world, but actively engaging with it, learning from it, and even transforming it. Let the idea of waking up inside your own dream gently guide you into a state of deep, aware relaxation as you fall asleep. The experience of a lucid dream can be profoundly transformative. For a moment, the dreamer, who was previously immersed in the dream's narrative and accepting its bizarre logic as reality, has a flash of insight. This is a dream. This moment of lucidity can range from a fleeting, partial awareness to a full, crystal-clear realization. With this awareness comes a dramatic shift in experience. The dream world can become incredibly vivid, stable, and hyperreal. The dreamer realizes they are not bound by the laws of physics. They can choose to fly, to walk through walls, to conjure objects and characters at will. They can consciously decide to explore the dream landscape, to confront a frightening dream figure, or to ask questions of the dream's characters. It is the ultimate virtual reality, generated entirely by the mind, with the dreamer as a conscious participant. While the concept has been a part of spiritual traditions like Tibetan dream yoga for centuries, the Western scientific study of lucid dreaming was pioneered by researchers like Stephen LaBerge. LaBerge famously devised experiments to prove that lucidity was a real, verifiable phenomenon. He instructed himself and other lucid dreamers to perform a prearranged signal, a specific pattern of eye movements, the moment they became lucid within a dream. Because eye muscles are not paralyzed during REM sleep, the stage most associated with vivid dreaming, these signals could be recorded by electrodes in the sleep lab, providing objective, external proof that the dreamer was indeed consciously aware and signaling from within the dream state. This groundbreaking work moved lucid dreaming from the realm of anecdotal curiosity into the world of scientific inquiry. So, what is happening in the brain during a lucid dream? This remains a key part of the psychology mystery, but brain imaging studies are beginning to provide clues. During a lucid dream, it appears that brain regions normally associated with waking self-awareness and executive function, particularly parts of the prefrontal cortex, show increased activation. In a normal dream, these areas are relatively quiescent, which is why we tend to be uncritical and accept the bizarre events of the dream. In a lucid dream, it's as if these higher-order brain regions wake up, while the rest of the brain remains in the dreaming state. This creates a unique hybrid state, blending the immersive, generative power of the dreaming brain with the self-awareness and intentionality of the waking brain. It is a state that challenges our simple binary division of consciousness into awake and asleep. The potential applications of lucid dreaming are vast and exciting, though still largely in the exploratory phase. For creativity and problem-solving, it offers a direct line to the hyper-associative, symbolic processing of the subconscious mind. A dreamer could consciously use the dream state to workshop a creative idea, ask the dream to provide a solution to a difficult problem, or simply explore fantastical worlds for artistic inspiration. For overcoming nightmares, lucidity is a powerful tool. A dreamer who becomes lucid during a frightening dream can realize that the threat is not real and can choose to confront the nightmare figure, ask what it wants, or simply change the dream's narrative, transforming fear into empowerment. This is a core technique in some forms of dream therapy. For skill rehearsal, some research suggests that mentally rehearsing a motor skill, like playing a piano piece or swinging a golf club, within a lucid dream can activate the same neural pathways as physical practice, potentially leading to improvements in waking performance. The dream state becomes a perfect, consequence-free flight simulator for practicing skills. And for many, the most profound application is simply spiritual and existential exploration. A lucid dream offers the opportunity to consciously explore the deepest layers of one's own psyche, to interact with the symbols and figures that emerge from the subconscious, and to experience states of profound joy, freedom, and connection. The mindfuck of lucid dreaming is its radical demonstration of the plasticity of consciousness and reality. It proves that the world we experience is a model, a construction, because in a lucid dream, we can consciously witness and even alter the construction process itself. It questions the very definition of reality. If you can experience a world that feels completely real, and yet you know it is a dream and can change it with your thoughts, what does that say about the realness of your waking world? It blurs the line between observer and creator, perception and imagination. It suggests that our consciousness is not just a passenger, but a potential pilot, capable of navigating the inner cosmos of the subconscious mind. Of course, inducing lucidity is a skill that requires practice. Techniques often involve reality testing during the day, repeatedly asking, "Am I dreaming?" and checking for anomalies, keeping a dream journal to improve dream recall, and using mnemonic induction techniques before sleep, like repeating the intention, "Tonight, I will recognize that I am dreaming." But the very fact that this skill can be learned is a testament to the mind's ability to become aware of its own inner workings. As you continue to fall asleep, let the tantalizing possibility of lucid dreaming gently enter your awareness. Imagine the moment within a dream when you suddenly realize, this is a dream. Feel the surge of clarity, the sense of freedom and boundless potential that would come with that realization. You do not need to force this to happen. Simply hold the intention, the gentle curiosity. Acknowledge that within your own mind lies a vast, explorable world, a subconscious landscape you can potentially learn to navigate with awareness. Find deep relaxation in this profound possibility, the idea of becoming a conscious explorer in the universe of your own mind, resting peacefully, open to the possibility of awakening within the beautiful, mysterious, and endlessly creative theater of your dreams. Repression and defense mechanisms. We have journeyed through the deep structures of the psyche, the primal ID, the moralistic superego, the mediating ego. According to Freudian and psychodynamic theory, these inner agencies are often in a state of conflict. The raw, instinctual drives of the ID and the perfectionistic demands of the superego create a constant state of pressure and anxiety for the conscious ego. How does the ego, our sense of self, manage this internal turmoil and protect itself from being overwhelmed? It does so through a sophisticated and largely unconscious toolkit of psychological strategies known as defense mechanisms. At the heart of these defenses lies the primary and most fundamental mechanism of all: repression. This is the unconscious process of actively pushing threatening or unacceptable thoughts, memories, and hidden desires out of conscious awareness and into the depths of the subconscious mind. Repression and the other defense mechanisms are the silent, invisible guardians of the ego, constantly working to maintain psychological stability. The mystery of these mechanisms lies in their subtlety and power, a secret of the subconscious that reveals how much of our mental life is dedicated to avoiding pain and managing inner conflict. Understanding these guardians is crucial to understanding our own behaviors and blind spots, inviting deep relaxation through a compassionate acknowledgement of the ways our minds protect us as you fall asleep. Let's begin with the cornerstone: repression. Freud considered it the most important defense mechanism, the foundation upon which many others are built. Repression is not the same as conscious suppression, where you deliberately try to not think about something. Repression is a completely unconscious process. The ego, faced with a thought, memory, or desire that would cause extreme anxiety, guilt, or shame if it were to become conscious, perhaps a traumatic memory or a forbidden impulse, simply and automatically pushes it down into the unconscious. The memory is not erased. It is merely rendered inaccessible to conscious recall. It is buried alive. Freud believed that this repressed material, though hidden, remains active and energetic. It constantly seeks to return to consciousness and can exert a powerful indirect influence on our lives, manifesting as neurotic symptoms, anxiety, phobias, obsessive thoughts, or in a disguised form through dreams and Freudian slips. The process of psychoanalysis, for Freud, was largely about carefully uncovering this repressed material, bringing it into the light of consciousness where it could be understood and integrated, thereby freeing up the psychic energy that had been used to keep it buried. While repression is the primary defense, the ego has a whole arsenal of other, more specialized strategies at its disposal, many of them first systematically catalogued by Freud's daughter, Anna Freud. Let us gently explore a few of these silent guardians. One of the most common is denial. While repression pushes a threatening reality out of awareness, denial is the refusal to accept reality itself. It is a more primitive defense, a simple refusal to acknowledge a fact that is too painful to handle. An individual might deny a serious medical diagnosis, refuse to believe a loved one has died, or deny an addiction problem, despite overwhelming evidence. Denial acts as a temporary buffer, protecting the ego from a sudden, shocking reality that it is not yet equipped to process. While it can be adaptive in the immediate aftermath of a trauma, long-term denial prevents a person from confronting and dealing with their reality. Then there is projection, which we will explore in greater detail in our next segment. This is the unconscious act of attributing one's own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or motives to another person. Instead of acknowledging your own anger, you perceive others as being angry with you. Instead of facing your own insecurities, you become highly critical of the insecurities of others. Projection allows the ego to disown threatening inner content by externalizing it, turning an internal conflict into an external one, which can feel easier to manage. Displacement involves shifting an impulse or emotion from its original, threatening target to a safer, less threatening one. For example, if you are angry at your boss but cannot express it for fear of losing your job, you might unconsciously displace that anger and come home and yell at your spouse, your children, or even just kick the cat. The emotional energy is discharged but onto a substitute target. This protects the ego from the dangerous consequences of confronting the original source of the feeling. Rationalization is the cognitive defense of creating plausible, logical-sounding, but ultimately false, excuses to justify unacceptable behavior or feelings. It is a way of explaining away our actions to ourselves and others to avoid facing the true, underlying motives. A person who was passed over for a promotion might rationalize their disappointment by saying, "I didn't really want that job anyway, it had too much responsibility." A person who acts cruelly might rationalize it by saying, "They deserved it," or "I was just teaching them a lesson." Rationalization protects self-esteem and avoids guilt by reframing our behavior in a more acceptable light. Sublimation, which we will also explore in its own segment, is considered the most mature and adaptive defense mechanism. It involves channeling unacceptable primal urges of the ID, like aggression or libido, into socially acceptable, constructive, and often creative activities. An individual with strong aggressive impulses might become a successful surgeon, a competitive athlete, or a sharp-witted lawyer. An individual with strong sexual energies might channel them into creating passionate art or music. Sublimation allows the ID's energy to be expressed in a way that is not only harmless but also beneficial to society and fulfilling for the individual. The mindfuck of defense mechanisms is the realization that a significant portion of our daily thoughts and behaviors might be driven by these unconscious, self-protective strategies. Our perception of reality, both internal and external, is constantly being filtered and distorted by these guardians of the ego. They operate silently, automatically, and convincingly. We are often the last to know that we are engaged in denial or projection. This questions our very capacity for self-awareness and objectivity. It suggests that our conscious mind is often a carefully curated and protected space, shielded from the more difficult and threatening truths of our own inner world. The mystery is the sheer elegance and subtlety of these mechanisms, the way the psyche works tirelessly behind the scenes to maintain its own equilibrium. Understanding defense mechanisms is not about judging them as bad. They are essential for psychological functioning. Without them, our conscious egos would be constantly overwhelmed by raw instinctual urges, crippling anxiety, and unbearable truths. They are the mind's immune system, protecting us from psychological harm. However, problems arise when these defenses become too rigid, too pervasive, or too primitive, preventing us from growing, from forming authentic relationships, and from confronting the realities we need to face in order to heal and mature. Psychological health involves having a flexible and diverse set of mature defenses, and the conscious capacity to reflect on when and how we are using them. As you continue to fall asleep, gently acknowledge the protective mechanisms within your own mind. Recognize that your ego has developed a set of guardians to shield you from pain and anxiety, repression, denial, projection, rationalization. See them not as enemies but as well-intentioned, if sometimes misguided, protectors. You do not need to analyze or dismantle them now. Simply appreciate the intricate ways your psyche works to maintain its balance and protect your conscious self. Find deep relaxation in trusting this protective intelligence, even as you cultivate a gentle awareness of its presence. Resting peacefully, feeling safe and held by the silent, vigilant guardians of your own subconscious mind. Projection. We have just touched upon the defense mechanisms, the silent guardians of the ego. Let us now take a deeper, more focused look at one of the most powerful, pervasive, and socially significant of these defenses, the mechanism of projection. In its simplest form, psychological projection is the unconscious process of taking our own unacceptable or unwanted qualities, feelings, or impulses and attributing them to someone else. Instead of recognizing a difficult trait within ourselves, we project it outwards and perceive it as existing in the people and world around us. It is the mental equivalent of a movie projector, taking an image from an internal film reel and casting it onto the external screen of another person. The things that irritate, infuriate, or horrify us most in others may, in fact, be the disowned and unrecognized parts of our own subconscious mind, our own shadow. This is a profound psychology mystery and a deeply humbling secret of the subconscious, questioning the very objectivity of our judgments about others and revealing that our perception of the social world is often a mirror, reflecting back our own hidden inner landscape. Contemplating this subtle process can lead to immense self-awareness and a more compassionate, relaxed way of being in the world as you fall asleep. Let's explore how this unconscious mechanism works. The process begins with repression. As we've discussed, The ego pushes thoughts, feelings, or traits that are incompatible with our conscious self-image or our moral superego down into the unconscious. Perhaps we have strong feelings of anger, but we see ourselves as a calm and peaceful person. Perhaps we have deep-seated insecurities, but our persona is one of confidence and competence. Perhaps we harbor selfish or greedy hidden desires, but we value generosity. These disowned parts do not simply vanish. They remain active and charged with energy in the subconscious. This creates internal tension. The ego, to maintain its stability and avoid the anxiety of confronting this internal contradiction, employs projection as a secondary defense. It takes the repressed quality, the anger, the insecurity, the greed, and externalizes it. The internal statement, "I am angry," becomes too threatening to admit, so it is transformed into the external perception, "That person is angry at me." The uncomfortable feeling, "I am insecure," is turned into the critical judgment, "That person is so insecure and needy." The disowned trait is now safely out there, located in someone else. This serves two purposes. Firstly, it allows us to disown the unwanted quality, preserving our positive self-image. Secondly, it gives us a seemingly legitimate external target to criticize, judge, or attack. We can now fight against our own unwanted trait, but we do so by fighting it in the other person. This external battle is often a substitute for the internal one we are avoiding. This is the mindfuck of projection. Our strongest negative reactions to others are often deeply personal, telling us more about ourselves than about the other person. The world becomes a mirror for our own unacknowledged shadow. The specific qualities that trigger the most intense emotional reactions in us are often the very qualities we have failed to confront in ourselves. As Jungian analyst Robert A. Johnson wrote, "If you have a strong emotional reaction to a person or a situation, you can be sure that there is something of yourself in it that you have not taken care of." This doesn't mean the other person doesn't possess the trait we are projecting. They may very well be angry or insecure. But our disproportionate emotional charge, our intense irritation or self-righteous condemnation, is the clue that our own unconscious material has been hooked and projected onto them. We can see projection operating everywhere in human interaction. In personal relationships, a person who is unconsciously struggling with their own untrustworthiness might become intensely jealous and suspicious, constantly accusing their partner of infidelity. They are projecting their own untrustworthy feelings onto their partner to avoid facing them. In the workplace, a manager who is deeply insecure about their own competence might constantly criticize and micromanage their employees, projecting their own feelings of inadequacy onto their team. On a societal level, projection is a primary engine of prejudice and scapegoating. It is often easier for a group or nation to project its own collective shadow, its fears, its aggression, its failings, onto an outgroup, another race, religion, or nation, than to confront these difficult qualities within itself. The outgroup then becomes the container for all that is evil or bad, allowing the in-group to maintain a sense of its own righteousness and purity. The most extreme historical atrocities have been fueled by this powerful psychological mechanism. The mystery of projection lies in its unconscious, automatic, and utterly convincing nature. When we are in the grip of a strong projection, we do not feel as if we are interpreting or judging. We feel as if we are perceiving objective reality. The other person seems undeniably irritating, incompetent, or malicious. Our perception feels direct and true. It takes a significant act of self-reflection and psychological courage to even consider the possibility that the intensity of our feeling might be a reflection of our own inner world. The ego's defenses are designed to be invisible to the ego itself. So, how can we begin to work with this powerful and elusive mechanism? The key is to cultivate the practice of withdrawing our projections. This is a central and lifelong task in the journey of self-awareness. It begins with mindfulness, noticing our own strong emotional reactions to others without immediate judgment. When you feel a surge of intense anger, irritation, or moral condemnation towards someone, you can learn to pause. Instead of immediately focusing all your energy on what is wrong with the other person, you can gently turn a part of your attention inward. You can ask the difficult question, is there any part of this quality, even a tiny part, that also exists in me? Is this person mirroring something that I have not acknowledged in myself? This does not mean condoning the other person's bad behavior or taking the blame for everything. It is about taking responsibility for your own emotional reaction. Withdrawing a projection means recognizing that the hook for your intense emotion is inside you. By acknowledging your own capacity for anger, insecurity, or selfishness, You take back the psychic energy you were projecting. This has a dual effect. First, it reduces the other person's power over you. They are no longer an all-powerful villain, but just a flawed human being who happened to trigger your own unresolved issues. Second, and more importantly, it allows you to begin the work of shadow integration. By owning the disowned trait, you can bring it into consciousness, understand it, and learn to manage it, rather than letting it control you from the dark or dictate your perception of others. This process leads to greater humility, compassion, and psychological wholeness. As you continue to fall asleep, let the concept of projection gently illuminate the workings of your mind. Acknowledge the natural tendency to see our own unseen traits reflected in the world around us. Think of a person who strongly irritates you, and just for a moment, gently entertain the possibility that your intense reaction might be a clue, a whisper from your own subconscious, about a part of yourself you have yet to meet. You do not need to agree or disagree. Simply hold the question. Find deep relaxation in the humbling and liberating idea that the world can be a mirror. Let this awareness soften your judgments of others and deepen your curiosity about yourself. Resting peacefully, slowly withdrawing your projections from the world, and gathering your whole self into the quiet, accepting darkness of sleep. Sublimation. Having explored the darker and more defensive aspects of the subconscious mind, the primal desires of the ID, the critical voice of the superego, and the protective, often distorting, screen of defense mechanisms like repression and projection, let us now turn to a process that is considered the most mature, adaptive, and creative of them all. This is the mechanism of sublimation. In psychoanalytic theory, sublimation is the process by which we unconsciously channel the raw, powerful, and often socially unacceptable energy of our primal urges, our libidinal and aggressive drives, into new, socially valuable and constructive activities. It is the alchemical process of transforming the raw, instinctual lead of the ID into the psychological gold of art, science, culture, spirituality, and compassionate action. Sublimation is the secret of the subconscious that explains how human civilization itself is built, how our greatest achievements often spring from our deepest, most primitive roots. This is a profound psychology mystery, a mindfuck that questions the very source of human genius and inspiration, suggesting that the most beautiful creations may be powered by our most base instincts. Contemplating this transformative power can be a source of deep peace and inspiration as you fall asleep. Let's begin by returning to Freud's model. The ID, as we've seen, is a cauldron of raw, instinctual energy, primarily libido, life and sexual energy, and thanatos, the death drive or aggressive energy. These drives, operating on the pleasure principle, demand immediate gratification. However, civilization and the superego demand that these urges be controlled, repressed, and denied direct expression. This creates a constant state of internal conflict and tension. If this energy is simply repressed, it can fester and emerge as neurotic symptoms. But the psyche has another, healthier option. Instead of merely blocking the energy, it can redirect it. Sublimation is this process of redirection. The original aim of the impulse is desexualized or deaggressified, and the energy is channeled towards a new, non-instinctual and culturally esteemed goal. Consider the artist. Freud might suggest that the passionate, all-consuming drive to create a masterpiece, to pour one's soul into a painting or a symphony, is a sublimated expression of libidinal energy. The raw desire for sensual union and creation is transformed into the creation of aesthetic beauty. The intense focus, the passion, the obsession, the energy is the same, but the aim has been elevated from the purely personal and instinctual to the symbolic and cultural. The artist, in this view, is a master of psychic alchemy, transforming their own hidden desires into works that enrich the lives of others. Consider the surgeon. The act of cutting into a human body is, in most contexts, a profound act of aggression. Yet, the surgeon channels this potentially aggressive impulse, this desire to cut and control, into the precise, disciplined, and life-saving act of surgery. The underlying energy of the aggressive drive is sublimated into a highly controlled, socially lauded, and constructive profession. Similarly, a competitive athlete might be sublimating aggressive urges into the disciplined pursuit of victory within a framework of rules. A passionate scientist, driven to uncover the secrets of the universe, might be sublimating a primal curiosity, a desire to penetrate the mysteries of nature. A dedicated social reformer fighting for justice might be sublimating aggressive energy into a battle against societal ills. From this perspective, Many of our greatest cultural, scientific, and social achievements are the products of this remarkable subconscious transformation. The mindfuck of sublimation is its radical reinterpretation of human motivation, particularly for our noblest pursuits. It suggests that the line between our highest and lowest impulses is not a clear one. Instead, our highest achievements might be powered by the very same primal energies that, left unsublimated, could lead to destructive or antisocial behavior. It questions the purity of our intentions, suggesting that even in our most altruistic or creative moments, we are still managing the ancient, powerful drives of the ID. It doesn't diminish the value of the final creation, the art, the scientific discovery, the act of healing, but it offers a more complex and psychologically rich account of the raw energy that fuels them. It suggests that civilization is not built by destroying our primal nature, but by finding creative and constructive ways to channel its immense power. The psychology mystery of sublimation lies in its mechanism. How does this transformation actually occur? How does the subconscious mind perform this incredible feat of redirecting energy from one aim to another? The process is, by definition, unconscious. It is not a deliberate choice. We don't consciously decide, I will now sublimate my aggression into becoming a lawyer. It is a developmental achievement of a mature and healthy ego, an ego that has learned to successfully mediate between the demands of the ID, the superego, and reality. It likely involves complex processes of symbolization, where the mind learns to find satisfaction in abstract or creative pursuits that are symbolically linked to the original instinctual aim. Unlike other defense mechanisms like repression or projection, which are often seen as signs of unresolved conflict, Freud and subsequent psychoanalysts viewed sublimation as the hallmark of psychological maturity. It is the most successful and adaptive defense because it does not simply block or deny instinctual energy. It transforms it in a way that is both personally fulfilling and socially beneficial. It allows for the partial gratification of the ID's drives in a way that avoids punishment from the superego and is celebrated by the external world. It is the ultimate win-win-win for the psyche. Contemplating sublimation allows us to look at human culture and our own passions with a new lens. It invites us to see the immense creative potential that lies within our own deep, instinctual nature. It suggests that our passions, our hobbies, the things we are driven to create or achieve, may be connected to the deepest and most powerful parts of our being. It encourages a more compassionate and less judgmental view of our primal urges, seeing them not as enemies to be vanquished, but as powerful sources of energy to be understood and channeled wisely. It offers a profound sense of hope for the human condition, suggesting that even our most primitive, dark energies can be transformed into sources of beauty, knowledge, and healing. As you continue to fall asleep, gently bring to mind a passion or a pursuit that brings you deep satisfaction. Something you create, something you strive for, something you love to learn. Contemplate the possibility that the energy for this passion springs from the deepest, most primal wellsprings of your being, a beautiful transformation of raw, instinctual drive into a constructive and meaningful activity. Acknowledge the alchemical power of your own subconscious mind, its ability to take the raw material of your hidden desires and spin it into gold. Find deep relaxation in this idea of creative transformation, in the profound secret that the very same energies can lead to chaos or to art, to destruction or to healing. Resting peacefully, confident in the creative, sublimating power of your own psyche to build a meaningful life. The concept of psychological complexes. Let us now explore a concept that provides a crucial bridge between the deep, universal archetypes of the collective unconscious and the unique, personal dynamics of our individual lives. We delve into the nature of the psychological complex. Originally explored by Carl Jung, a complex is an emotionally charged cluster of thoughts, memories, feelings, and images that are held together in the subconscious mind, all centered around a common theme, often an archetypal one. Think of it as a small, semi-autonomous subpersonality, or a splinter psyche within your larger personality. It is a knot of psychic energy that, when triggered, can powerfully influence your conscious thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, often in ways that feel irrational or outside of your control. The existence and behavior of these complexes are a profound psychology mystery, a secret of the subconscious that helps to explain our recurring emotional patterns, our sensitive, sore spots, and the powerful grip certain themes have on our lives. Understanding the nature of your own complexes is a vital step towards self-awareness and integration, inviting deep relaxation through the compassionate acknowledgement of these hidden inner characters as you fall asleep. Jung discovered the existence of complexes through his early work with the word association test. He would read a list of words to a patient and measure their reaction time and physiological response to each one. He noticed that certain words would cause a delayed response, a change in breathing, or other signs of emotional disturbance. He inferred that these trigger words were hitting upon a sensitive, emotionally charged cluster of ideas in the patient's unconscious, a complex. He famously said, "Everyone knows that complexes exist. What is not so well known is that complexes can have us." This speaks to their autonomous nature. When a complex is activated, it can temporarily take over the ego, and we find ourselves thinking, feeling, and acting in ways dictated by the complex's logic, not our own conscious volition. How are complexes formed? They typically arise when a powerful, archetypal pattern is activated by a personal experience, often a difficult, traumatic, or emotionally charged one. The archetype provides the universal core, and personal experience provides the specific content. For example, we all have the potential for the mother archetype within our psyche. If an individual has a particularly difficult or painful relationship with their personal mother, perhaps she was overly critical, smothering, or absent, this can constellate a powerful, negative mother complex. This complex would be a subconscious cluster of all the memories, feelings of inadequacy, anger, and longing associated with the mother. Later in life, this complex can be triggered by authority figures, particularly women, causing the person to react with irrational defensiveness, people-pleasing, or rebellion that seems disproportionate to the current situation. They are not just reacting to the person in front of them, they are reacting through the emotionally charged lens of their unresolved mother complex. Similarly, a person might have a power complex, driven by deep feelings of powerlessness from their childhood, leading to a compulsive, often self-defeating, striving for control and dominance in their adult life. An inferiority complex, a term coined by Jung's contemporary Alfred Adler, describes a core feeling of inadequacy that can lead to either shy withdrawal or arrogant overcompensation. A hero complex might drive someone to constantly seek out situations where they can rescue others, not necessarily out of pure altruism, but to satisfy a deep unconscious need to prove their own worth. Each complex has a core and archetypal theme, around which personal memories and emotions have gathered like iron filings around a magnet. The mindfuck of the complex is the realization that some of our most powerful and recurring emotional patterns and behaviors may not be of our own conscious choosing. They are the semi-autonomous actions of these subpersonalities within us. When you are in a complex, your ability to reason and see the world objectively is compromised. You are seeing the world through the emotionally distorted lens of that specific knot of psychic energy. It explains why we sometimes overreact so strongly to certain situations, why we get stuck in the same self-defeating relationship patterns, or why we have certain blind spots about ourselves. We are being temporarily possessed by an autonomous part of our own subconscious mind. This questions the very unity and control of our conscious ego, revealing that our psyche is more like a polycentric committee than a single unified monarchy. The mystery of complexes lies in their energy and autonomy. Why do these clusters of memory and emotion behave like independent agents within the psyche? Jung saw them as the natural building blocks of the mind. They are not inherently pathological. We all have complexes, a mother complex, a father complex, an ego complex, our conscious sense of self. They only become problematic when they are overly negative, repressed, and wield an unconscious control over our lives. The goal of depth psychology is not to eliminate complexes, which is impossible, but to make them conscious. By becoming aware of our complexes, we can begin to understand their triggers, their origins, and the stories they tell. This awareness allows us to build a relationship with them, to integrate their energy, and to stop being unconsciously ruled by them. When a complex is made conscious, it loses its compulsive power. Instead of being possessed by the anger of your father complex when criticized by a boss, you can recognize the feeling and say, this is my father complex being triggered. The situation with my boss is real, but my intense emotional reaction belongs to my past. This act of conscious differentiation creates a space for choice. You are no longer a puppet of the complex. You are an ego in conscious dialogue with it. The energy tied up in the complex can then be freed up and used for more constructive purposes. The complex is not destroyed, but is integrated into the larger personality, like a formerly rebellious province being peacefully incorporated into the kingdom. This process of making complexes conscious is a central part of the journey towards self-knowledge. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to explore the often painful origins of our emotional patterns. It involves paying close attention to our dreams, our projections, and our intense emotional reactions as clues to what lies in our subconscious. The symbols and figures that appear in our dreams are often personifications of our complexes, offering a direct line of communication to these hidden parts of ourselves. As you continue to fall asleep, gently consider the recurring emotional themes in your own life. The situations that always seem to trigger a disproportionate reaction. The sensitive spots, the inner sore points. Contemplate the possibility that these are the signatures of your psychological complexes, knots of energy in your subconscious mind. You do not need to name them or analyze them now. Simply acknowledge, with compassion, that these powerful, autonomous parts of you exist. Find deep relaxation in the understanding that these complexes are not you, but are parts of you seeking awareness and integration. Let go of self-judgment for your irrational reactions and instead, cultivate a gentle curiosity about their origins, resting peacefully, allowing all the different, complex parts of your inner world to coexist in the quiet, accepting space of sleep. The modern cognitive unconscious. Having journeyed through the dramatic, conflict-ridden landscapes of the Freudian and Jungian subconscious, let us now shift our perspective to the modern, scientific understanding of the mind's hidden depths. In contemporary cognitive psychology and neuroscience, the concept of the unconscious has been reborn, stripped of much of its mythic and psychosexual baggage, and re-envisioned as the cognitive unconscious. This is not a dark cellar of repressed desires, but rather a sophisticated, high-performance supercomputer operating silently in the background of our minds. Its primary characteristic is automaticity, the vast array of mental processes that occur effortlessly, rapidly, and without the need for conscious awareness or control. The modern cognitive unconscious is the master of routine, the silent engine of skill, the lightning-fast processor of perception. The mystery here is not one of hidden conflict, but of staggering efficiency and complexity. The secret it reveals is that almost everything you do, from reading these words to walking across a room, is largely governed by these automatic, unconscious processes. This mindfuck questions the very role and importance of our conscious mind, suggesting it is more of a spectator than a commander-in-chief. Understanding this incredible efficiency can be a source of profound deep relaxation and trust in the silent competence of your own brain as you fall asleep. Let's begin by appreciating the sheer scale of unconscious processing. Your conscious mind, the part of you that is experiencing these words and forming deliberate thoughts, has a very limited processing capacity. It is slow, serial, handling one thing at a time, and easily overwhelmed. In contrast, the cognitive unconscious is a massive parallel processor, capable of handling billions of bits of information every second. It manages your heartbeat, your breathing, and your body temperature. It processes the torrent of raw data from your senses, filtering and organizing it long before it ever reaches your conscious awareness. It runs the complex motor programs that allow you to walk, talk, or ride a bicycle without having to consciously think about each individual muscle movement. The conscious mind sets the goal, I want to walk to the door, but the unconscious mind executes the incredibly complex series of actions required to achieve it. This is the power of automaticity. Through practice and repetition, complex tasks that once required intense conscious effort are offloaded to the unconscious. Think of learning to play a musical instrument. At first, you must consciously focus on every note, every finger placement, every rhythm. It's a slow and clumsy process, but with thousands of hours of practice, the skill becomes automated. An expert musician doesn't consciously think about the mechanics of playing. Their fingers seem to move on their own, guided by a deep, embodied, unconscious knowledge. This frees up their conscious mind to focus on the higher-level aspects of the music, emotion, interpretation, artistry. This process of skill automation is one of the most fundamental functions of the cognitive unconscious. This unconscious processing extends deep into our social and cognitive lives. Implicit memory, which we will explore next, is the way past experiences can shape our behavior without our conscious recall. Implicit learning is our ability to learn complex rules and patterns without being aware that we are doing so. For example, we learn the incredibly complex grammatical rules of our native language as children without any formal instruction. We acquire an intuitive feel for what sounds right, a feat of unconscious statistical pattern recognition. The modern view also recognizes unconscious emotional processing. The amygdala, a key emotional center in the brain, can react to a threatening stimulus, like a snake-like shape, and trigger a physiological fear response before the conscious cortex has even had time to fully process and identify the object. This is why we can jump in fright first and only realize what we saw a moment later. Our unconscious threat detection system is faster than our conscious awareness, a crucial survival advantage. This leads to the mind fuck of the modern view. The role of the conscious mind itself becomes a mystery. If the unconscious is handling perception, skill execution, pattern recognition, and initial emotional responses, what is consciousness for? One prominent theory is that the conscious mind acts as a kind of executive, a manager that deals with novelty, error correction, and strategic, long-term planning. The unconscious runs the day-to-day automated operations of the factory, but when a new or unexpected problem arises, something the automated systems are not programmed to handle, the conscious CEO is called in to deliberate, make a novel decision, and set a new goal. Consciousness is the system's troubleshooter and its long-range planner. Once the new skill is learned or the new plan is set, the unconscious can then work on automating it. This perspective profoundly questions our intuitive sense of agency. We feel like we are consciously authoring our actions in real time. But a wealth of evidence, from neuroscience experiments showing brain activity preceding conscious decisions, to our own experience of skills becoming automatic, suggests that our conscious mind might be more like a press secretary than a president. It observes the actions and decisions generated by the vast, unconscious machinery of the brain and then skillfully constructs a coherent narrative explaining why we did what we did, creating the compelling illusion that the conscious I was in charge all along. This does not mean we are mindless automatons. Our conscious mind, with its capacity for reason, reflection, and goal setting, is still profoundly important. It is the part of us that can learn from the past, imagine the future, and choose to override our automatic habits. The secret of the subconscious, in the modern view, is not to be a slave to it, but to form a better partnership with it. By understanding our unconscious habits and biases, we can use our conscious mind to intentionally practice new habits, to expose ourselves to new experiences, and to gradually retrain the automatic responses of our unseen mind. As you continue to fall asleep, bring your awareness to the incredible automaticity of your own being in this moment. Feel the effortless rhythm of your breath, a process managed perfectly by your unconscious mind. Acknowledge the vast, silent computation happening in your brain, processing sounds, maintaining bodily balance, filtering information, all without any conscious effort from you. Let go of the illusion that your conscious self is running the entire show. Find deep relaxation in trusting the immense competence and efficiency of your cognitive unconscious. Appreciate it as a powerful, silent partner, a wise and experienced pilot handling the intricate machinery of your existence, allowing your conscious mind the freedom to simply rest, to dream, and to be, resting peacefully, supported by the vast, unseen, and incredibly intelligent workings of your own mind. Implicit memory. We often think of memory as a conscious act of recollection, the deliberate calling to mind of a past event, a fact, or a name. This is what psychologists call explicit memory. But what if the past could shape our present thoughts, feelings, and actions in ways we do not consciously remember? This is the domain of implicit memory, one of the most profound and subtle secrets of the subconscious mind. Implicit memory is the influence of past experiences on our current behavior without our conscious awareness or intentional recall of those experiences. It is the echo of the past, resonating in our skills, our emotions, and our choices, even when the original event is completely forgotten. The mystery of how the past shapes us without our awareness questions our very understanding of self and history, suggesting that we are guided by a vast, unseen library of experiences. Understanding this hidden form of memory is a key to understanding our habits, our intuitions, and our deepest patterns, inviting deep relaxation through the acceptance of the past's gentle, invisible influence as you fall asleep. Let's distinguish this from explicit memory. If I ask you what you had for breakfast this morning, and you consciously search your mind and recall the experience of eating eggs, that is explicit memory at work. But implicit memory is different. It is revealed through performance, not recall. The classic example is procedural memory, the memory for skills and habits. When you ride a bicycle, you are drawing upon a complex set of learned motor skills. You don't consciously remember the thousands of individual moments of trial and error that went into learning to balance and pedal. The knowledge is stored implicitly in your motor system. Your body remembers, even if your conscious mind does not recall the process of learning. Typing on a keyboard, playing a musical instrument, swimming, these are all skills governed by implicit procedural memory. The knowledge is expressed through doing, not through telling. Another powerful form of implicit memory is priming, which we have touched upon. This is where exposure to one stimulus influences our response to a subsequent stimulus, without conscious guidance. If you are shown a list of words including the word doctor, and later asked to complete a word fragment like "enurse," you will be faster and more likely to complete it as "nurse" than someone who was not shown the initial list. You may have no conscious memory of seeing the word doctor, but it has unconsciously activated a network of related concepts, making nurse more accessible. This shows how our subconscious mind is constantly making connections and being shaped by recent experiences, even those we don't explicitly remember. These priming effects, though often subtle, demonstrate how our immediate past constantly and unconsciously shapes our interpretation of the present. Perhaps the most emotionally significant form of implicit memory is classical conditioning. This is where we learn to associate a neutral stimulus with an emotionally charged one. If a child is frightened by a barking dog, the previously neutral stimulus of dog can become associated with the fear response. Later in life, this person might feel a surge of irrational anxiety or fear around dogs without having any explicit, conscious memory of the specific event that created the association. The emotional memory is stored implicitly in the amygdala and other limbic structures. This is the source of many of our seemingly inexplicable phobias, anxieties, and even positive emotional responses. A certain smell, a piece of music, a quality of light might evoke a powerful feeling of nostalgia or sadness, an emotional echo of a long-forgotten past experience. The feeling is real and present, but its source is a memory that is implicit, not explicit. The mindfuck of implicit memory is the realization that your past is not just what you remember. You are shaped and influenced by a vast history of experiences that are not accessible to your conscious recall. Your personality, your preferences, your fears, your habits, your very way of being in the world, are all sculpted by this unseen library of implicit memories. This questions the narrative theory of self in a profound way. If we are the stories we tell ourselves, what about the vast parts of our story that are unwritten in our conscious narrative, yet are still powerfully active within us? It suggests that our self is much deeper and more mysterious than the story our conscious ego tells about it. It means that the reasons for our actions and feelings are often hidden from us, residing in the implicit archives of the subconscious. The psychology mystery lies in understanding the neural basis of these different memory systems and how they interact. We now know that explicit and implicit memories are handled by different brain circuits. Explicit memory is heavily dependent on the hippocampus and medial temporal lobes for its formation. Implicit memory, on the other hand, relies on various other brain regions depending on the type: the basal ganglia and cerebellum for procedural skills, the neocortex for priming, and the amygdala for emotional conditioning. The brain has multiple, parallel systems for learning from the past. The mystery is how these systems work together to create our seamless experience of a continuous self, guided by both conscious recall and unconscious influence. Understanding implicit memory has profound therapeutic implications. Many forms of therapy, particularly those in the psychodynamic and somatic traditions, work not just by talking about conscious memories, but by trying to access and reprocess the implicit, emotional, and procedural memories that drive maladaptive patterns. By bringing awareness to these deeply ingrained automatic responses, we can begin to understand their origins and gradually create new, healthier patterns. It is the process of making the implicit explicit. As you continue to fall asleep, gently acknowledge the profound and mysterious influence of your own past. Acknowledge that you are the sum total of all your experiences, not just the ones you can consciously recall. Your body remembers how to walk, how to breathe. Your emotional system remembers old joys and old hurts. Your mind is primed by a lifetime of associations. You don't need to excavate this entire past. Simply trust in its richness, in the deep foundation of experience upon which your present self rests. Find deep relaxation in letting go of the need to have a complete and conscious accounting of your own history. Appreciate that the past is alive within you, not as a story to be told, but as the very texture of your being, resting peacefully, supported and shaped by the vast, silent, and ever-present wisdom of your own implicit memory. Implicit bias. Having explored the ways our subconscious mind stores memories and skills without our awareness, let us now turn to a more challenging and socially significant aspect of our hidden inner world: implicit bias. These are the unconscious, automatic attitudes and beliefs, the deeply ingrained stereotypes that we hold about different social groups, based on characteristics like race, gender, age, or ethnicity. These biases operate outside of our conscious awareness and can exist in stark contradiction to our explicitly stated conscious values. A person can genuinely believe in equality and fairness at a conscious level, yet still harbor unconscious, automatic associations that can subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, influence their judgments, perceptions, and behaviors towards others. Implicit bias is a profound and often uncomfortable psychology mystery, a secret of the subconscious that reveals how our minds are shaped by cultural messages and ingrained associations, often without our permission. It questions the very purity of our intentions and the objectivity of our social perceptions, inviting deep relaxation not through comfort, but through the courageous, non-judgmental awareness of the complex patterns that reside within our unseen mind as you fall asleep. To understand implicit bias, we must first recognize that our brains are natural categorizers. To navigate a complex social world, we automatically and unconsciously sort people into social groups. This is a basic cognitive shortcut, a way of simplifying an overwhelming amount of information. Alongside these categories, our subconscious mind learns a vast network of associations, absorbed from our culture, media, personal experiences, and societal structures. If a particular social group is consistently and repeatedly portrayed in a certain way, for example, associated with certain traits, roles, or behaviors in movies, news reports, or even jokes, our brains, as powerful statistical learners, will form an implicit association between that group and that trait. This happens automatically, outside of our conscious endorsement. An implicit bias is not a conscious belief that all people from group X are Y. It is a subconscious, automatic link in our neural wiring that connects group X and trait Y. The existence of these unconscious associations is most famously demonstrated by the implicit association test (IAT), a tool developed by psychologists Anthony Greenwald, Mazarin Banaji, and Brian Nosek. The IAT measures the speed at which a person can pair concepts. For example, it might measure how quickly you can associate faces of a particular race with positive words versus negative words. Many people who consciously hold egalitarian beliefs find, to their surprise and dismay, that they are slightly faster at pairing faces of a majority group with positive words and faces of a minority group with negative words, or vice versa, depending on the specific bias being measured. This difference in reaction time, often just milliseconds, is thought to reflect the strength of the underlying, automatic association in the subconscious. It does not mean the person is a conscious bigot. It means their subconscious mind has absorbed the pervasive stereotypes of their culture, creating a mental habit that can be activated automatically. The mindfuck of implicit bias is this profound disconnect between our conscious values and our unconscious associations. It reveals that our commitment to fairness and equality, while genuine and important at the conscious level, might be constantly undermined by the automatic, lightning-fast judgments of our subconscious mind. We might consciously strive to be impartial, yet our implicit biases can subtly influence micro-behaviors, our body language, our tone of voice, the amount of eye contact we make. It can influence who we are more likely to trust, who we are more likely to interrupt, or whose resume we are more likely to find impressive. In situations that are ambiguous, require a split-second decision, or where our conscious mind is tired or distracted, these automatic biases are more likely to take the helm and guide our behavior. This has significant real-world consequences, contributing to systemic inequalities in areas like hiring, criminal justice, education, and healthcare, even in the absence of overt, conscious prejudice. A doctor's implicit bias might subtly affect the quality of their communication with patients from different backgrounds. A teacher's unconscious associations might influence their expectations of a student's academic potential. A hiring manager might feel an unexplainable better fit with a candidate who shares their own demographic background. These are not necessarily acts of intentional discrimination, but the cumulative effect of thousands of small, unconscious biases across a society can create and perpetuate significant disparities. This is what makes the mystery of implicit bias so challenging. It operates in the shadows, creating effects that are statistically visible on a large scale, but often invisible and deniable in any single interaction. It is crucial to approach this topic with self-compassion rather than shame. Implicit biases are not a sign of a moral failing. They are a natural consequence of how our brains work in the societies we live in. We all have them. They are the cognitive smog we all breathe. The goal is not to achieve a state of perfect, bias-free purity, which may be impossible, but to become aware of our potential biases and to actively work to counteract their influence on our behavior. How can we manage this deep-seated aspect of our subconscious mind? The first and most critical step is awareness and acceptance. Simply acknowledging that you, like everyone, are susceptible to implicit biases is a powerful act of intellectual humility. It moves the conversation from, "Am I biased?" to, "In what ways might my biases be showing up, and what can I do about it?" Once we accept this, we can begin to use our conscious mind to implement strategies. Mindfulness is a powerful tool, as it can help us slow down our thought processes and create a space between an automatic impulse and a conscious action, allowing us to notice a potential bias before we act on it. We can also consciously work to counter stereotype. This involves actively exposing ourselves to positive examples of people from groups that are often stereotyped, thereby helping to build new, more positive associations in our subconscious. We can make a deliberate effort to engage in perspective taking, actively trying to imagine the world from the viewpoint of someone from a different background, which can increase empathy and reduce bias. In institutional settings, creating systems that reduce the impact of discretion and rely on objective criteria, such as blind resume reviews in hiring, can be a powerful way to de-bias outcomes, acknowledging that individual minds are fallible. Contemplating implicit bias is a challenging but necessary part of exploring the secrets of the subconscious. It reveals that our minds are not entirely our own. They are also products of our culture, carrying the imprints of a long and often unjust social history. It questions our self-perception as purely rational, autonomous agents and calls us to a deeper, more humble, and more vigilant form of self-awareness. As you continue to fall asleep, gently acknowledge the complex and layered nature of your own mind. Recognize that your subconscious has learned associations from the world, patterns and biases that may not align with your conscious values. Hold this knowledge without shame or judgment. See it not as a personal flaw, but as a part of the human condition. Find deep relaxation in the commitment to conscious awareness. The gentle intention to act from your values, even as you acknowledge the subtle pull of your unconscious associations. This is the quiet, lifelong work of aligning the seen and the unseen parts of the self, resting peacefully, with a compassionate and honest awareness of the intricate social tapestry woven within your own mind. Somatic markers. We have explored intuition and the concept of gut feelings as whispers from the subconscious mind. Let us now delve deeper into the specific neuroscientific theory that attempts to explain this phenomenon, revealing the profound and intimate way your body guides your mind. This is the somatic marker hypothesis, proposed by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio. It suggests that our rational decision-making is not a cold, logical process, but is, in fact, critically dependent on emotional signals that arise from our body's response to different choice options. These signals, or somatic markers from soma, the Greek word for body, are a kind of emotional tag or highlight that your subconscious attaches to potential outcomes based on your past experiences. They are the physiological echoes of past joy, fear, relief, or regret, and they serve as an intuitive, biasing mechanism that helps you navigate complex decisions more effectively. This secret of the subconscious is a profound psychology mystery that questions the long-held Western philosophical tradition of separating reason from emotion, suggesting instead that true rationality is deeply embodied. Let this understanding of your body's wisdom bring you into a state of integrated, deep relaxation as you fall asleep. To understand the somatic marker hypothesis, imagine you are faced with a complex decision with multiple options, each with uncertain future consequences. A purely rational approach would require you to perform a painstaking, slow, and cognitively exhausting cost-benefit analysis of every single option. Damasio argues that this is not how our brains, especially when dealing with personal and social decisions, actually work. Instead, as you consider an option, your brain rapidly, automatically, and unconsciously retrieves memories of similar past situations and their emotional outcomes. This retrieval triggers a cascade of physiological changes in your body, the very changes that accompanied the original emotion. For example, if you are considering a risky business venture, your brain might retrieve memories of past financial losses. This, in turn, generates a faint, almost imperceptible physiological state associated with the anxiety and regret of those past failures. Perhaps a slight tightening in your stomach, a subtle increase in your heart rate, a change in your endocrine system. This bodily state is the somatic marker. This unpleasant gut feeling acts as an intuitive alarm bell, a signal from your subconscious that says, "Warning, this path has led to negative outcomes before." This negative marker doesn't make the decision for you, but it effectively narrows down your options, pushing the risky venture out of the running so that your conscious, rational mind can focus on analyzing the remaining, more promising alternatives. Conversely, if you consider an option associated with past successes and positive feelings, your brain might generate a pleasant, positive somatic marker, a feeling of ease, expansion, or quiet confidence. This positive, gut feeling acts as an intuitive nudge, an encouragement from your subconscious that says, "This path has been fruitful in the past." These somatic markers are a form of implicit memory in action, the wisdom of past emotional experiences being brought to bear on present decisions, without your needing to consciously recall every single relevant past event. They are a highly efficient heuristic, a shortcut that uses the language of the body to guide the deliberations of the mind. The evidence for this hypothesis comes largely from studying patients with specific types of brain damage, particularly to a region of the prefrontal cortex called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, VMPFC. This area of the brain is thought to be crucial for integrating emotion and decision-making. Patients with damage to the VMPFC often retain their full intellectual and logical reasoning abilities. They can analyze problems, score highly on IQ tests, and discuss moral dilemmas in a sophisticated way. However, their personal and social decision-making becomes disastrously impaired. They struggle to make advantageous choices in their own lives, making ruinous financial decisions, entering into destructive relationships, and failing to learn from their mistakes. Damasio's research, particularly using a tool called the Iowa Gambling Task, demonstrated why. In this task, participants choose cards from different decks to win money. Some decks provide small, consistent wins, while others offer large wins but also occasional devastating losses, making them disadvantageous in the long run. Normal participants, after experiencing a few of the large losses, begin to generate a physiological stress response, measured by skin conductance, before they even consciously realize which decks are bad. This is the somatic marker at work, an unconscious bodily warning signal. They soon learn to avoid the risky decks. Patients with VMPFC damage, however, never generate this anticipatory gut feeling. Even though they can consciously articulate that a deck is bad after repeated losses, they don't get the emotional bodily signal to guide their future choices, and so they continue to choose from the disadvantageous decks until they go bankrupt. They have the facts, but they lack the body's intuitive guidance. The mindfuck of the somatic marker hypothesis is its complete appending of the idea that emotions are the enemy of reason. The Western philosophical tradition has often prized a form of detached, disembodied logic, seeing emotions as irrational noise that interferes with clear thinking. Damasio's work suggests the exact opposite, that a lack of emotional, embodied feedback cripples our ability to make effective, real-world decisions. True rationality is not dispassionate, it is emotionally informed. Our gut feelings are not irrational interruptions, they are a crucial source of data, a summary of our entire experiential history, delivered by the subconscious mind through the body to guide our conscious deliberations. The psychology mystery lies in the exquisite detail of this mind-body dialogue. How does the brain so rapidly search its vast memory stores for emotionally relevant precedents? How are these memories translated into such specific and nuanced bodily states? And how does the conscious brain learn to listen to and interpret these subtle somatic signals? This is a vibrant area of research, connecting neuroscience, psychology, and even contemplative traditions that have long emphasized the importance of embodied awareness. Understanding the role of somatic markers can profoundly change our relationship with ourselves. It encourages us to respect our intuition and our gut feelings, not as infallible commands, but as valuable pieces of information to be considered alongside our rational analysis. It validates the wisdom inherent in our emotional and physical experiences. It suggests that practices which cultivate interoception, the awareness of our internal bodily state, such as mindfulness or yoga, are not just for relaxation, but are ways of tuning the very instrument of our decision-making faculty. By learning to listen to the quiet language of our bodies, we can gain access to the vast computational power of our unseen mind. As you continue to fall asleep, bring your awareness to the subtle living sensations within your body, the quiet rhythm of your heart, the gentle flow of your breath, the feeling of warmth or coolness, of tension or ease. Recognize these not as meaningless background noise, but as a constant stream of information, a quiet conversation between your body and your mind. Contemplate the idea that your deepest wisdom, your most effective guidance, might come not from the loud voice of reason alone, but from the quiet, embodied whispers of your somatic markers. Find deep relaxation in trusting this integrated intelligence. Let go of the conflict between thought and feeling, mind and body, and allow yourself to rest peacefully as a whole, unified, and deeply intelligent being. The power of habit. Let us now explore one of the most powerful and pervasive ways the subconscious mind shapes our daily lives, a force so fundamental that it governs perhaps 40 to 50% of our waking behavior. This is the power of habit. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic, an action or thought pattern that is triggered by a specific cue and unfolds without the need for conscious intention or deliberation. Making your morning coffee, driving the same route to work, brushing your teeth, reaching for your phone when you feel bored. These are all behaviors largely governed by the silent, efficient machinery of habit. This process of automation, where conscious choices become unconscious behavioral loops, is a profound secret of the subconscious. It is a psychology mystery that reveals the brain's incredible capacity for efficiency, but also its vulnerability to getting stuck in patterns that may no longer serve us. Understanding the deep neurological basis of habit is key to understanding our own behavior and the nature of personal change, inviting deep relaxation through the calm acknowledgement of the automatic pilot that guides so much of our existence as you fall asleep. At its core, a habit is a neurological shortcut, a way for the brain to conserve its most precious resource, conscious attention and decision-making energy. Conscious thought, handled by the prefrontal cortex, is slow, effortful, and easily depleted. If we had to consciously deliberate every single action of our day, how to tie our shoes, how to operate a doorknob, how to form words into a sentence, we would be utterly exhausted by breakfast. To solve this, the brain has evolved a remarkable ability to offload recurring behaviors to a more ancient, efficient part of its architecture, the basal ganglia. When a behavior is consistently performed in a specific context to achieve a rewarding outcome, the brain begins to chunk this sequence together into a single, automatic routine. The conscious mind can then go offline, freeing up its resources for novel problems and creative thought. The neurological structure of a habit is often described as a three-step loop, as popularized by author Charles Duhigg in The Power of Habit. The first step is the cue. This is the trigger, the bit of information from our environment or our internal state that tells the brain which automatic routine to use. A cue can be a time of day, morning, a specific location, the kitchen, a preceding action, finishing a meal, an emotional state, feeling stressed or bored, or the presence of other people. The cue is the starting pistol for the unconscious behavior. The second step is the routine. This is the behavior itself, the physical, mental, or emotional action that unfolds automatically once triggered by the cue. The routine can be simple, biting your nails, or incredibly complex, driving a car, playing a complex piece of music. While the routine is running, conscious involvement is minimal. You are on autopilot, guided by the deeply ingrained pathways in your subconscious mind. This is why you can sometimes drive all the way home and have no conscious recall of the journey itself. Your habit loop was in control. The third and most crucial step is the reward. This is the positive outcome that tells your brain that this particular loop is worth remembering and repeating in the future. The reward can be a physical pleasure, the taste of a cookie, the nicotine rush from a cigarette, an emotional satisfaction, the feeling of relief from anxiety, the sense of social connection from checking social media, or even just a simple sense of completion or novelty. The reward floods the brain with neurochemicals like dopamine, which reinforces the connection between the cue and the routine, making the habit loop stronger and more automatic with each repetition. It is this reward mechanism that locks the habit into place. The mindfuck of the power of habit is the realization of just how much of your life is not a product of your conscious, deliberate choices, but is rather the replaying of these unconscious, automated scripts. It questions our sense of agency and free will. Are you truly choosing to reach for your phone when you have a moment of downtime, or is that action being triggered by the cue of boredom and run by a powerful, dopamine-reinforced habit loop in your subconscious? This doesn't mean we are helpless automatons, but it does mean that our conscious self is often more of a passenger than a driver, only becoming aware of the behavior after the subconscious has already initiated it. Our conscious mind often excels at creating post hoc rationalizations for these habit-driven behaviors, telling us a story about why we chose, to do something that was actually an automatic response. The psychology mystery of habit lies in its tenacity and its ability to operate independently of our conscious goals. This is why bad habits are so notoriously difficult to break. You can consciously know that a habit is bad for you, like smoking or overeating. You can have a strong, sincere hidden desire to stop. But the habit loop exists in a more primitive, automatic part of the brain that is not always responsive to the logic and intentions of the prefrontal cortex. When the cue appears, the unconscious routine can be triggered before your conscious willpower has a chance to intervene. This is why simply deciding to stop a bad habit often fails. The old neurological pathways are still there, well-worn and waiting for their trigger. So, how do we work with this powerful subconscious system to create meaningful change? The secret lies not in trying to extinguish a bad habit, which is incredibly difficult, but in understanding and rewiring the habit loop. The most effective strategy, according to research, is to keep the same cue and the same reward, but to consciously insert a new routine. This is the golden rule of habit change. If the cue is feeling stressed, and the reward you seek is a feeling of distraction and relief, and the current routine is mindlessly scrolling through social media, you could consciously design a new, healthier routine to insert in its place. When you feel the cue, stress, you could choose to perform a new routine. Go for a short walk, do 5 minutes of deep breathing, listen to a piece of calming music that provides a similar reward, a sense of relief and a mental break. By consistently practicing this new loop, you begin to build a new, stronger neurological pathway, and the old, unhealthy habit gradually loses its power. This understanding is profoundly empowering. It reframes personal change not as a heroic battle of willpower against hidden desires, but as a more gentle, systematic process of understanding your own unconscious behavioral loops and consciously redesigning them. It requires self-awareness to identify the cues and rewards that drive your habits, and then the conscious effort to practice a new routine. As you continue to fall asleep, bring a gentle, non-judgmental awareness to the rhythm of your own habits. Acknowledge the powerful, silent force of automaticity that guides so much of your day, conserving your energy and allowing your mind to focus on what is new. See your habits, both good and bad, not as reflections of your character or willpower, but as learned neurological loops. Contemplate the profound secret that you have the power to consciously influence these deep, subconscious patterns. You can't always control the cue, but you can choose the routine. Find deep relaxation in this insight. Let go of any guilt or frustration over unwanted habits, and instead rest in the quiet, empowered knowledge that you are not just a creature of habit, but you can also be the gentle, patient, and conscious architect of your habits. Resting peacefully, allowing the old loops to quiet down, and creating space for new, more intentional patterns to form in the stillness of sleep. Déjà vu. Let us now drift into one of the most common, yet deeply uncanny and inexplicable experiences of the human mind. It is a fleeting, powerful sensation that blurs the lines between past and present, familiarity and novelty. This is the experience of déjà vu. The term, French for already seen, perfectly captures the feeling. An overwhelming, immediate and certain conviction that you have experienced this exact present moment before, accompanied by the simultaneous conscious knowledge that you have not. This strange duality, this clash between an intense feeling of recognition and the rational certainty of novelty, makes déjà vu a profound psychology mystery. Is it a simple subconscious memory glitch, a brief misfiring in the brain's complex filing system? Is it a glimpse into a past life, a precognitive vision, or evidence of parallel universes? Or is it something else entirely, a secret of the mind that reveals the intricate ways our brain constructs our sense of time and familiarity? Contemplating this strange temporal echo is a perfect way to fall asleep, gently loosening our grip on the linear nature of experience. The experience of déjà vu is notoriously difficult to study in a laboratory, as it is spontaneous, transient, and subjective. However, psychologists and neuroscientists have proposed several compelling theories, most of which frame it as a fascinating type of memory glitch. These theories suggest that déjà vu is not a paranormal event, but rather a hiccup in the complex cognitive machinery that processes memory and perception. One of the leading explanations is the dual processing theory. This theory posits that the brain normally processes incoming sensory information through multiple pathways simultaneously, which are then integrated into a single, coherent experience. A déjà vu event might occur when there is a momentary, split-second delay in one of these pathways. Imagine information from your eyes taking two slightly different routes to your brain's higher processing centers. If one route is delayed by just a few milliseconds, the brain would first receive a signal, creating a sense of familiarity, and then immediately receive the second, slightly delayed signal. The brain, misinterpreting the second signal as a new perception, would try to match it with the immediately preceding one, which has already been tagged as past, resulting in the strange feeling of re-experiencing the present moment. It's like a tiny neurological echo that the brain misinterprets as a memory. Another related theory focuses on a brief disruption in the brain regions responsible for familiarity and recollection, particularly within the temporal lobes and the hippocampus. Our brains have separate, though interconnected, systems for judging whether something is familiar and for consciously recalling the specific episodic details of a past event. Déjà vu could be a moment when the familiarity circuit fires inappropriately, triggered by a novel stimulus. Your brain's familiarity detector sends a strong signal of "I've seen this before," but your conscious recollection system, the hippocampus, can find no actual memory to match it. This creates the characteristic conflict of déjà vu, a powerful raw feeling of familiarity completely detached from any concrete memory of a past event. It is a feeling without a source, a recognition without a recollection. This is supported by the fact that intense or frequent déjà vu can sometimes be a symptom associated with temporal lobe epilepsy, suggesting that minor, undetected electrical misfirings in these brain regions could trigger the experience in healthy individuals. A different psychological perspective suggests that déjà vu arises from implicit memory, a concept we have already explored. It could be that a new scene or situation contains several subtle elements that are similar to a forgotten past experience. While you have no conscious, explicit memory of the original scene, your subconscious mind recognizes the familiar configuration of elements. This partial, unconscious memory match triggers a strong feeling of familiarity, but because you cannot consciously recall the source of the memory, you misattribute the feeling to the entire present situation, leading to the eerie sense that this exact moment has happened before. For example, you might walk into a room in a foreign country you've never visited, but the specific layout of the furniture, the quality of the light through the window, and the pattern on the wallpaper might unconsciously resonate with a forgotten memory of a room from a movie you saw as a child. You don't remember the movie, but the feeling of familiarity is real, and your brain mistakenly applies it to the present moment. The mindfuck of déjà vu lies in its profound challenge to our sense of time and the reliability of our own minds. For a fleeting moment, the linear progression of past, present, and future seems to collapse. The present feels like the past. This can be so convincing that it leads to more esoteric and speculative interpretations. The idea that déjà vu is a memory from a past life, or a moment where we are remembering the future, precognition, or even a glitch in the matrix, where two parallel universes momentarily intersect, are all ways of trying to make narrative sense of an experience that defies our normal causal understanding. While these ideas lack scientific evidence, their persistence in popular culture speaks to the power of the subjective experience. The feeling is so strange, so out of the ordinary, that it seems to demand an extraordinary explanation. This secret of the subconscious reveals the incredible complexity and fragility of our memory and time perception systems. The fact that these systems work so seamlessly almost all the time is the true miracle. Déjà vu is the rare and fascinating moment when we get to see the seams. It shows us that familiarity is not a simple property of the world, but a cognitive and emotional judgment that our brain actively produces. It is a signal, and like any signal, it can sometimes be a false alarm. As you continue to fall asleep, let yourself recall the strange, fleeting feeling of déjà vu. That moment of impossible repetition, of a present that feels like a memory. Acknowledge it not as a supernatural event, but as a beautiful, harmless glitch in your own sophisticated mental machinery, a testament to the intricate dance of perception, familiarity, and memory happening every moment in your subconscious mind. Find deep relaxation in the mystery of this phenomenon, in the understanding that your experience of reality is a complex construction, and that occasionally, the gears of that construction can create a strange and wondrous echo, resting peacefully, floating calmly in the fluid, sometimes looping river of time as your brain perceives it. Synchronicity. We have just explored déjà vu, a moment when our inner sense of time seems to loop and glitch. Let us now turn to a related but even more mysterious phenomenon, one that seems to blur the line between our inner psychological world and the outer physical world. This is the concept of synchronicity. Coined by the psychiatrist Carl Jung, synchronicity refers to the experience of a meaningful coincidence, where two or more events, one internal, like a thought, dream, or feeling, and one external, an event in the world, occur in a way that seems meaningfully related, yet lacks any apparent causal connection. It is the dream that seems to come true, the random song on the radio that perfectly answers a question you were pondering, the unexpected encounter with a person you were just thinking about. Mainstream science often dismisses these events as mere statistical chance, our pattern-seeking minds imposing meaning where there is none. But for Jung, and for many who experience them, synchronicities can feel like profound messages from the subconscious mind or even from the cosmos itself. The mystery of synchronicity is a deep secret of the subconscious, questioning the very nature of causality and the boundary between mind and matter, inviting deep relaxation through the contemplation of the hidden, meaningful patterns that may lie beneath the surface of our existence as you fall asleep. Let's distinguish synchronicity from simple coincidence. Coincidences happen all the time. In a world of billions of people and countless events, it is statistically inevitable that improbable things will occur. You might run into an old friend in a foreign city, or two people in a room might share the same unusual birthday. These are surprising, but we usually attribute them to chance. A synchronicity, however, is a coincidence that is experienced as being profoundly meaningful to the individual. The meaning is not in the event itself, but in the relationship between the external event and the person's inner psychological state at that moment. Jung formulated his theory after numerous clinical observations and personal experiences. One of his most famous examples involved a patient who was recounting a dream about being given a golden scarab beetle. As the patient was telling him the dream, Jung heard a gentle tapping at the window. He opened it to find a scarab-like beetle, a Citonia aurata, which he caught and presented to his patient. This striking parallel between the dream symbol and the real-world event broke through the patient's overly rationalistic defenses and proved to be a turning point in her therapy. For Jung, this was not just a random chance event. It was an acausal connecting principle, a moment where the inner world of the psyche and the outer world of matter seemed to align in a meaningful way. He believed that such moments often occur during times of significant psychological transformation or when an archetype from the collective unconscious is strongly activated. So, what could be the mechanism behind these meaningful coincidences? The skeptical, scientific explanation is primarily psychological. It points to our powerful cognitive biases. Confirmation bias leads us to notice and remember the hits, the times a coincidence seemed meaningful, while forgetting the countless misses, the times we thought of a friend and they didn't call. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or frequency illusion, explains why, after becoming interested in a certain topic, we suddenly seem to see it everywhere. Pareidolia, our tendency to see patterns and randomness, can lead us to perceive meaningful connections in unrelated events. From this perspective, synchronicity is not a feature of the world but a feature of our minds. It is a projection of meaning onto chance. Our subconscious mind, with its hidden desires and preoccupations, is constantly scanning the world for things that are relevant to its current state, and when a random event happens to align with that state, we experience it as a profound and meaningful synchronicity. Jung, however, proposed a more radical and metaphysical explanation. He suggested that psyche and matter are not two fundamentally separate things, but are complementary aspects of a single unified reality, which he called the unus mundus, or one world. In this view, the archetypes of the collective unconscious do not just exist in the mind. They are psychoid, meaning they have an aspect that is not purely psychic but can manifest in the physical world. A synchronicity, then, is a moment where an archetype is constellated in the unconscious and simultaneously manifests externally in the physical world, not through a chain of cause and effect, but through a shared meaning and acausal alignment. This is a profound mindfuck that questions the very foundations of our scientific worldview, suggesting that the universe might be connected not just by causality, but also by meaning. It hints that the division between our inner, subjective reality and the outer, objective world might be more porous than we imagine. The mystery of synchronicity lies in this irresolvable tension between two powerful explanations: psychological projection versus acausal connection. Is the meaning we perceive in these coincidences something we create and impose on a random world? Or is it something we discover, a genuine feature of a more mysterious and interconnected reality? There is no scientific experiment that can definitively prove or disprove the existence of an acausal connecting principle. The experience of synchronicity is inherently personal and subjective. Its meaning is found not in its objective proof, but in its psychological impact on the individual who experiences it. Whether we interpret them as a subconscious memory glitch or a message from the deep, synchronicities can serve a valuable psychological function. They can act as powerful moments of affirmation, making us feel that we are on the right path. They can break us out of a narrow, rationalistic mindset and open us up to a sense of wonder and mystery. They can provide comfort during times of difficulty, creating a sense of being connected to a larger, meaningful order. They can bring our attention to important themes or complexes in our own psyche that are seeking conscious recognition. By paying attention to the meaningful coincidences in our lives, we are, in a sense, listening to the symbolic language of our own unconscious pattern recognition system as it interacts with the world. As you continue to fall asleep, allow your mind to drift over the coincidences in your own life. The unexpected encounters, the fortuitous discoveries, the moments that felt strangely meaningful. Contemplate the two possibilities. Are these simply the mathematical certainties of chance, our pattern-seeking minds finding meaning in the noise? Or are they hints of a deeper connection, a resonance between your inner world and the outer universe? Let go of the need to decide. Find deep relaxation in embracing the mystery itself. Appreciate the secret of the subconscious, that it is a meaning-seeking organ, constantly weaving connections and telling stories. Whether these stories reflect a deeper cosmic order or are a purely internal creation, they are a vital part of what makes our existence feel significant. Resting peacefully, open to the possibility of a world that is not just causally connected, but also meaningfully aligned. Active imagination. We have explored the many ways the subconscious mind communicates with us indirectly, through dreams, symbols, intuition, and even our mistakes. But what if it were possible to engage with this hidden realm more directly? What if you could consciously enter into a dialogue with the figures and forces of your own inner world? Carl Jung developed a powerful and profound method for precisely this purpose, a technique he called active imagination. This is not passive daydreaming or idle fantasy. It is a conscious, deliberate, and meditative practice of engaging with the contents of the subconscious as if they were autonomous beings, allowing them to speak, act, and reveal their own nature. Active imagination is a direct pathway into the secrets of the subconscious, a method for bridging the gap between the conscious ego and the deep archetypal world within. The mystery of this practice lies in its profound effectiveness, its ability to produce insights, foster psychological integration, and heal deep-seated conflicts by treating the psyche as a living, multifaceted community. It questions the very idea of a single, unified self and invites us into a direct dialogue with the unconscious, a deeply calming and centering experience as you fall asleep. The practice of active imagination typically begins with a state of quiet, meditative receptivity. The goal is to quiet the conscious, analytical mind and allow an image, a feeling, or a fantasy fragment to emerge spontaneously from the subconscious. This could be an image from a recent dream, a persistent mood, or a physical sensation. Instead of dismissing this fragment or trying to interpret it logically, you consciously decide to engage with it. You give it your full, non-judgmental attention. You allow it to take form. Let's imagine an image of a dark, frightening figure has emerged from your mind. Your conscious, habitual reaction might be to push it away or to feel fear. In active imagination, you do the opposite. You hold the image and you begin to interact with it as if it were a real, autonomous entity. You might ask it a question. Who are you? What do you want from me? The key is to then quiet your own conscious mind and listen for the answer, to allow the figure to respond in its own voice, in its own way. The answer might come as a thought that doesn't feel like your own thought, as a feeling, or as a further unfolding of the visual scene. You are not consciously making up the dialogue. You are creating a space for an autonomous part of your psyche, a psychological complex, or an archetypal figure to express itself. You then continue this dialogue. You speak from the perspective of your conscious ego, and you allow the unconscious figure to speak from its perspective. You treat it with the same respect and curiosity you would give to an unknown person you wish to understand. This process can be dramatic, emotional, and deeply revealing. The frightening figure, which your ego might have labeled as evil or negative, might reveal itself to be a source of misunderstood anger, a carrier of your repressed power, or a guide to a part of your shadow that needs to be integrated. By engaging it in a conscious dialogue, you are building a bridge between the conscious and unconscious worlds. You are moving from a state of conflict and repression to one of communication and potential integration. The mindfuck of active imagination is its radical premise, that the figures in your mind are, in a sense, real and have their own perspective. It requires a temporary suspension of the ego's belief that it is the only center of consciousness in the psyche. It asks us to treat our own mind as a polycentric system, a community of different subpersonalities and archetypal forces, each with its own voice and wisdom. This profoundly questions our sense of a single, unified self. It suggests that psychological health lies not in the ego's dictatorial control over the psyche, but in its ability to act as a kind of respectful and discerning chairman of this inner committee, listening to all the voices before making a conscious decision. The psychology mystery here is why this process works so powerfully. How can simply imagining a conversation with an inner figure lead to real psychological change and healing? Jung believed that active imagination allows for the direct expression and integration of psychic energy that would otherwise remain trapped in the subconscious, causing neurotic symptoms. By giving a complex a voice and a form, we allow its energy to be seen, understood, and ultimately integrated into the whole personality. The process creates new symbols of unity, bridging the gap between opposites within the psyche, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine. It is a creative act that literally helps to build a more whole and integrated personality. The process is a form of self-realization, of making the subconscious conscious. This is not a practice to be undertaken lightly, and Jung often recommended having the guidance of a trained analyst, especially when dealing with powerful or disturbing unconscious material. However, the underlying principle of treating our inner world with respect and engaging its contents creatively and compassionately is a profound tool for self-discovery. It is different from simple meditation, which often aims to quiet the mind or observe thoughts passingly. Active imagination is about engaging the thoughts, giving them form, and entering into a relationship with them. It is a way of actively exploring the landscape of your own subconscious mind and befriending its inhabitants. As you continue to fall asleep, allow your mind to enter a state of gentle, receptive quiet. Let go of directed, logical thought. If a fleeting image or a feeling arises from the depths, you don't need to engage it in a full dialogue now. Simply acknowledge its presence with a sense of gentle curiosity and respect. Recognize it as a whisper from the vast living world of your subconscious. Contemplate the profound possibility that you can, indeed, form a conscious relationship with the hidden parts of yourself. That your mind is a community of voices, and that peace comes from learning to listen to them all. Find deep relaxation in the idea of this inner dialogue, in the trust that your psyche is always striving for wholeness, and that you can be an active, conscious partner in that beautiful and mysterious process. Resting peacefully, in silent communion with the deep, creative, and wise world within. The shadow self. We have journeyed through many corridors of the subconscious mind, exploring its structures, its symbols, and its hidden processes. Now, we must turn to confront the most challenging, most uncomfortable, and perhaps most vital inhabitant of this inner world. We must face the shadow self. The shadow, a core archetype in the psychology of Carl Jung, represents everything within us that we have disowned, repressed, and refused to see. It is our dark side, the container for our primitive instincts, our socially unacceptable impulses, our greed, our anger, our envy, our vulnerabilities, and our hidden desires that conflict with our conscious self-image. It is the part of us we prefer to keep hidden, not only from others but from ourselves. The mystery of the shadow is that the more we ignore or repress it, the more powerful and destructive it becomes, often controlling our lives from behind the scenes through projection and self-sabotage. The great secret of the subconscious is that the path to wholeness and genuine authenticity lies not in vanquishing this dark side, but in the courageous and compassionate act of integrating our dark side. This is a profound psychology mystery, a mindfuck that questions our simplistic notions of good and evil, inviting deep relaxation through the courageous acceptance of your whole, complex self as you fall asleep. The formation of the shadow self begins in early childhood. As we grow, we learn from our parents, our teachers, and our culture which parts of our personality are good and acceptable, and which parts are bad and unacceptable. We are praised for being kind, quiet, and cooperative. We are often punished or shamed for being too aggressive, too selfish, too loud, or too emotional. To gain love and acceptance, we begin to construct our conscious personality, our persona, around these good traits. The parts of ourselves that are deemed unacceptable are systematically disowned, pushed down into the darkness of the subconscious mind. This is not a conscious decision. It is a primal act of psychological survival. And so our shadow is born. It becomes the invisible bag we all carry, filled with the rejected aspects of our own humanity. The crucial thing to understand is that the shadow is not inherently evil in a moral sense. It is simply everything that is unconscious and undeveloped in us. Because these traits have been repressed, they remain primitive, raw, and undifferentiated. The anger in the shadow is not nuanced and controlled. It is a volatile, childish rage. The desire in the shadow is not refined. It is a grasping, primal urge. The paradox is that our very act of repression keeps these parts of us immature. By refusing to look at them, we prevent them from growing up. An unacknowledged shadow does not lie dormant. It exerts a powerful, autonomous influence on our lives. The most common way the shadow manifests is through projection, a defense mechanism we have explored. We fail to see our own greed, but we become self-righteously enraged by the greed we perceive in corporations or politicians. We deny our own capacity for arrogance, but we are intensely irritated by the arrogance of a colleague. The world becomes a screen upon which we project our own inner darkness. The people who trigger the most intense, irrational, and disproportionate emotional reactions in us are often unwitting carriers of our projected shadow. This is why working with the shadow is crucial for healing relationships and overcoming prejudice. As long as our shadow is unconscious, we will continue to create enemies in the outer world to fight the enemy within. The shadow can also manifest through self-sabotage. An individual with a strong, unacknowledged shadow might find their conscious plans and best intentions mysteriously undermined. A person striving for success might unconsciously forget an important meeting or make a careless mistake that ruins a project. This is often the shadow, which may fear success or feel unworthy of it, acting out from the subconscious to preserve its own status quo. It can also erupt in moments of stress or intoxication, when the ego's conscious control is weakened. This can lead to shocking outbursts of rage, cruel remarks, or impulsive behaviors that feel alien to our conscious personality, often followed by intense shame and the thought, "I don't know what came over me." What came over them was the repressed energy of the shadow self. The mind fuck of the shadow is the realization that you are not as good or as simple as you think you are. It questions the integrity of your conscious self-image and forces you to confront your own capacity for darkness. This can be a terrifying and deeply humbling realization. We prefer to see ourselves as the heroes of our own stories. The shadow reminds us that the villain is also a part of us. However, Jung insisted that the shadow is also a source of immense vitality, creativity, and potential. Because we repress not just negative traits, but anything that doesn't fit our conscious persona, the shadow often contains our golden aspects as well. It might hold our raw emotionality, our healthy aggression and assertiveness, our connection to our bodies and instincts, our undeveloped artistic talents, our spontaneity. A person who has built a persona of being overly nice and accommodating might have a shadow that is full of the power and assertiveness they need to protect their own boundaries and pursue their own goals. The shadow, therefore, is not just a problem to be solved. It is a treasure to be reclaimed. The lifelong work of psychological and spiritual maturity is the process of integrating our dark side. This is not about acting out our negative impulses. It is the opposite. It is about making them conscious. It is the courageous act of turning inward and acknowledging, yes, this too is a part of me. I have the capacity for envy. I have the capacity for rage. I have the capacity for selfishness. By bringing these traits into the light of awareness, we can begin to build a relationship with them. We can understand what triggers them, what they need, and how to express their underlying energy in more conscious and constructive ways. We take back our projections from the world and take responsibility for our own inner darkness. This process reduces the shadow's destructive, autonomous power and allows us to reclaim the vital energy that was trapped within it. This integration is the path to wholeness, or what Jung called individuation. It makes us not perfect but complete. It leads to greater authenticity, as we are no longer living a lie by pretending to be only our persona. It leads to greater compassion, for once we have confronted the darkness in ourselves, we are less inclined to be self-righteous and judgmental about the darkness in others. We recognize the shared human struggle. As you continue to fall asleep, allow yourself to gently acknowledge the existence of your own shadow self. You do not need to see its face or know its contents. Simply accept, with compassion, that there are parts of you that are unconscious, hidden, and disowned. See this not as a flaw, but as a fundamental part of the human psychic structure. a consequence of living in a world that requires us to adapt and form a persona. Let go of the need for purity and perfection, and instead, embrace the goal of wholeness. Find deep relaxation in the profound idea that your dark side is not an enemy to be defeated, but a lost part of yourself waiting to be understood and reclaimed, a source of immense energy and authenticity. Resting peacefully, allowing all parts of your being, both the light and the shadow, to coexist in the quiet, accepting, and integrated space of sleep. Primal fears. Beneath the surface of our specific, everyday worries, our anxieties about work, money, or relationships, lie deeper, more ancient currents of fear. These are the primal fears, the innate, evolutionarily ingrained anxieties that are wired into our nervous systems as a legacy of our ancestors' long struggle for survival. While a specific phobia of spiders might be personal, the underlying predisposition to fear small, scuttling creatures is likely a part of our shared human heritage. These primal fears often operate at the level of the subconscious mind, forming a deep, non-rational foundation for our unconscious anxiety. They are the ancient ghosts in our modern psyche, the echoes of a time when the world was a far more dangerous place. Exploring the evolutionary roots of our fears is a psychology mystery that questions the source of our deepest anxieties, revealing that we are often haunted not just by our personal past, but by the deep past of our entire species. Understanding this ancient inheritance can be a powerful way to find deep relaxation, allowing us to see our fears not as personal failings, but as echoes of an ancient and powerful survival instinct as you fall asleep. Let's consider the world in which the human brain evolved. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived as hunter-gatherers in small, vulnerable groups, facing constant, immediate threats. Survival depended on a nervous system that was exquisitely attuned to danger, a mind that could learn quickly from threats and maintain a high level of vigilance. Natural selection would have favored brains that were, in a sense, better safe than sorry. The cost of being overly anxious about a shadow that turned out to be nothing was low. The cost of being insufficiently anxious about a shadow that turned out to be a predator was absolute. We are the descendants of the anxious ones. Our brains inherited a powerful, pre-installed threat detection system, centered in deep, primitive brain regions like the amygdala. This system is designed to react quickly, automatically, and powerfully to certain types of stimuli that were consistently associated with danger in our evolutionary past. What are some of these primal fears? One of the most common is the fear of snakes and spiders. While in the modern developed world these creatures pose a minimal threat to most people, phobias of them are incredibly common and widespread across cultures. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. For millennia, venomous snakes and spiders were a real and present danger. Individuals who had an innate hair-trigger aversion to these creatures, who jumped first and asked questions later, were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. This predisposition, this preparedness to learn a fear of snakes and spiders, seems to be a part of our inherited psychological toolkit. Our unconscious anxiety is the echo of our ancestors' successful avoidance of venomous bites. Another deep-seated fear is the fear of heights, acrophobia. Again, this is highly adaptive. Falling from a great height is a significant danger for a bipedal primate that might climb trees or navigate cliffs. An innate caution, a visceral fear response when near an unprotected edge, would have been strongly selected for. The vertigo and anxiety we feel when looking down from a high place is a powerful, embodied memory of this ancient danger. The fear of the dark is a primal fear that most of us experience in childhood. For our ancestors, nighttime was a period of extreme vulnerability. Predators who relied on stealth and night vision were most active. The dark concealed dangers and rendered our primary sense, vision, almost useless. A deep-seated unease in the darkness, a tendency of the mind to populate the shadows with imagined threats, pareidolia in action, would have kept our ancestors vigilant and closer to the safety of the fire and the group. This points to another profound primal fear, the fear of social exclusion or ostracism. Humans are a deeply social species. For our ancestors, being part of a cohesive, cooperative group was essential for survival, for hunting, for defense, for child rearing. Being cast out of the group, ostracized, was effectively a death sentence. As a result, our brains evolved to be incredibly sensitive to social signals of approval and disapproval. The fear of public speaking, the anxiety of social judgment, the pain of rejection and loneliness, these are modern manifestations of this ancient, primal fear of being cast out. Our subconscious mind constantly monitors our social standing, and threats to it can trigger deep, powerful anxiety because, from an evolutionary perspective, social exclusion is a mortal threat. The mindfuck of primal fears is the realization that many of our modern anxieties are driven by an ancient, out-of-date operating system. The world has changed dramatically in the last few thousand years, but our deep, instinctual brain has not had time to catch up. We live in relatively safe, modern environments, but we are still running the fear software of a Paleolithic hunter-gatherer. This is why we can have a full-blown panic attack over a public speaking engagement, triggering the social exclusion fear that feels just as intense as the fear of a physical threat. Our subconscious, reptilian brain doesn't always distinguish between a threat to our social self and a threat to our physical self. This questions the rationality of our fears, revealing that they often spring from a logic that is ancient and deeply ingrained, rather than from a rational assessment of present-day risk. The psychology mystery lies in the interplay between this innate, evolutionary inheritance and our personal life experiences. Our genetics might give us a predisposition, a preparedness, to be anxious about certain things, but our personal history, our nurture, determines whether and how these fears manifest. A person with a genetic predisposition for anxiety might develop a full-blown phobia of dogs after a frightening childhood experience, while another person without that experience might simply feel a mild unease. Our unconscious anxiety is a complex tapestry woven from the threads of both deep evolutionary history and our own unique life story. Understanding the evolutionary roots of our fears can be a profoundly liberating and compassionate practice. It allows us to view our own anxiety not as a personal weakness or a character flaw, but as a testament to the incredible survival success of our ancestors. It is a sign that our threat detection system is working exactly as it was designed to. When you feel a surge of irrational fear, you can learn to step back and acknowledge it with a sense of detached curiosity. This is my ancient survival software kicking in. It's trying to protect me from a danger that was real for my ancestors. This act of reframing, of depersonalizing the fear, can reduce its power. It allows us to respond to the feeling with our conscious, modern mind, to assess the actual present-day risk, and to soothe our ancient, overactive amygdala. As you continue to fall asleep, gently acknowledge the ancient, primal fears that may lie dormant within your own subconscious mind. The fear of the dark, of heights, of rejection, of the unknown. See them not as your enemies, but as the echoes of your ancestors' wisdom, the legacy of their survival. Thank this ancient system for its tireless vigilance, and then gently let it know that you are safe now. Find deep relaxation in the understanding that your anxiety is not a sign of brokenness, but a sign of a deeply ingrained, powerful instinct for life. Resting peacefully, feeling secure, and allowing the ancient guard at the gate of your mind to finally rest as well in the safety of sleep. Hidden desires. We live our lives guided by conscious goals and intentions. We tell ourselves stories about why we do what we do. We go to work to earn a living, we exercise to be healthy, we spend time with friends because we enjoy their company. But what if these conscious reasons are only the surface of a much deeper, more powerful story? What if the true engines of our behavior are hidden desires, a complex web of unconscious needs, primal urges, and deeply ingrained aspirations that operate far beneath the level of our conscious awareness? The exploration of these subterranean currents of motivation is a central secret of the subconscious mind, a profound psychology mystery that questions the very narratives we construct about our own lives. It suggests that our conscious self, our ego, is often not the master of our destiny, but a skilled navigator riding the powerful, unseen currents of the subconscious. Let us gently explore the nature of these deep, motivational forces as you fall asleep. The idea that our true motivations are often hidden from us is a cornerstone of depth psychology, most famously articulated by Sigmund Freud. As we've explored, Freud's model of the psyche placed the ID at the very foundation of our being. The ID is the reservoir of our most primal hidden desires, primarily what he termed libido, life and sexual energy, and thanatos, the aggressive or death drive. These are not desires in the everyday sense, but vast, impersonal, biological forces demanding expression. Freud believed that almost all of our complex human behaviors, from our career ambitions to our artistic creations, are ultimately sublimated or disguised manifestations of these two fundamental drives. The desire to achieve greatness might be a sublimated form of the desire to dominate. The desire to create art might be a sublimated form of sexual desire. In this view, our conscious reasons for our actions are often elegant rationalizations, stories the ego tells itself to make our primal motivations palatable to ourselves and to society. The mindfuck of this perspective is its radical reduction of our noblest aspirations to the workings of primitive, biological urges. While many aspects of Freud's drive theory are no longer central to modern psychology, the core insight that much of our motivation is unconscious remains profoundly influential. Other thinkers propose different sets of fundamental, hidden desires. Alfred Adler, a contemporary of Freud, argued that a primary unconscious driver is the striving for superiority, a fundamental desire to overcome initial feelings of inferiority that we all experience as helpless infants. This striving can manifest in healthy ways as ambition and self-improvement, or in neurotic ways as a relentless, competitive power complex. For Adler, the key to understanding an individual was to understand their unique, often unconscious, style of life, developed to cope with this core feeling of inferiority. Humanistic psychologists like Abraham Maslow offered a more optimistic view. His famous hierarchy of needs proposed that we are motivated by a series of needs, from the most basic physiological and safety needs, up to the needs for love and belonging, esteem, and finally, self-actualization. Self-actualization is the desire to realize one's full potential, to become everything that one is capable of becoming. While these needs can be conscious, Maslow believed that for many people, the higher needs operate as a kind of quiet, subconscious pull, a hidden desire for growth and meaning that continues to motivate us even after our basic needs are met. This contrasts with Freud's view, suggesting that our deepest unconscious drives are not just primal and problematic, but can also be oriented towards growth, creativity, and transcendence. Modern evolutionary psychology provides another powerful framework for understanding our hidden desires. This perspective suggests that our fundamental motivations are the product of natural selection, designed to solve the adaptive problems our ancestors faced: survival, mating, protecting kin, and navigating social hierarchies. We have an unconscious desire for status, not just for ego gratification, but because status historically correlated with greater access to resources and reproductive opportunities. We have a deep, instinctual desire to protect our children, not just out of conscious love, but because of a powerful, evolved mechanism for ensuring the survival of our genes. We are drawn to certain physical traits in a partner, not just because of cultural standards of beauty, but because those traits may have been subconscious signals of health and fertility to our ancestors. This perspective questions the romantic narratives we tell ourselves about our choices, suggesting they are often guided by an ancient, genetic logic aimed at maximizing evolutionary fitness. The psychology mystery at the heart of motivation is the complex interplay between these different layers of desire. How do our ancient, evolved, primal urges interact with our learned cultural values and our conscious, personal goals? How does the subconscious mind prioritize and negotiate between a hidden desire for status, a conscious desire for altruism, and a bodily need for rest? Our final behavior is often a complex compromise, a vector pointing in the direction of the strongest combination of conscious and unconscious forces at that moment. This is why we can sometimes feel so conflicted, pulled in different directions at once, or act in ways that surprise even ourselves. It is the experience of these different motivational systems coming into conflict. So, how do we get in touch with these hidden desires? Since they are, by definition, unconscious, we cannot access them through simple introspection. The clues are often indirect. Our dreams are a primary source, often revealing our deepest wishes, fears, and conflicts in symbolic language. Our projections, as we've seen, can reveal the desires we have disowned in ourselves by showing us what we are overly focused on in others. Our Freudian slips and accidental behaviors can be leaks from the subconscious. Our fantasies and daydreams, the stories we are drawn to in books and films, the people we find ourselves intensely attracted to or repelled by, all of these can be seen as clues to the themes and desires that are active in our unseen mind. The process of uncovering them is one of self-reflection, paying attention to the emotional and symbolic patterns of our lives. The mindfuck of this exploration is the humbling realization that you may not be the primary author of your own ambitions. Your conscious self, your ego, may be more like the skilled rider of a powerful, instinctual horse. You can guide it, you can train it, you can build a relationship with it, but the raw energy, the fundamental drive, comes from the horse itself, the deep, unconscious, biological, and evolutionary forces of the subconscious. True self-knowledge is not just knowing what you consciously want, but understanding the powerful, hidden currents that move you. As you continue to fall asleep, Gently let go of the story you tell yourself about why you do what you do. Acknowledge that beneath your conscious goals and intentions, there lies a deep, mysterious, and powerful ocean of hidden desires and primal motivations. A legacy of your biological nature, your evolutionary past, and your deepest psychological needs. You do not need to name or understand all of these forces. Simply acknowledge their presence with a sense of awe and respect. Find deep relaxation in surrendering to these deep currents, trusting that the energies that move you are ultimately in the service of life. Rest peacefully, floating on the profound, unseen, and powerful river of your own deepest motivations, as you are guided gently into the world of sleep, the stream of consciousness. Let us now turn our awareness to the most immediate, yet most mysterious phenomenon of our mental lives, the constant, ever-present flow of our own thoughts. This is the stream of consciousness, a term famously coined by psychologist William James to describe the ceaseless cascade of ideas, images, memories, feelings, and snippets of language that moves through our minds. It is the inner monologue, the private movie, the very texture of our waking existence. But where does this stream originate? Where do thoughts come from? Do we consciously and deliberately create each thought? Or do they simply appear bubbling up from some unseen source? The origin of our thoughts is perhaps the ultimate psychology mystery, a secret of the subconscious that questions our very sense of authorship and control over our own minds. It is a profound mindfuck to realize that you are not necessarily the thinker of your thoughts, but rather the witness to them. Contemplating the source of this inner stream can be a powerful gateway to deep relaxation and mental freedom as you fall asleep. William James described the stream of consciousness with several key characteristics. He noted that it is always changing, yet feels continuous. It is a flow, not a series of disconnected snapshots. Even when interrupted, like after a period of sleep, we feel a sense of personal continuity, of picking up the same stream. It is also deeply personal. Your stream of consciousness is yours alone, private and inaccessible to others. Furthermore, it is selective. Our minds are constantly choosing what to attend to from a sea of potential information, a process guided by interest, habit, and intention. And finally, it has both a substantive part, the clear thoughts and images we can focus on, and a transitive part, the fleeting, indistinct feelings of relation, the fringes and tendencies that guide the flow from one thought to the next. The fundamental mystery lies in the genesis of the substantive parts, the thoughts themselves. If you take a moment to quiet your mind and simply wait for the next thought to appear, you will notice a curious thing. You cannot predict what it will be. It simply arrives. An image, a worry, a line from a song, a memory, a plan for tomorrow. It emerges, seemingly fully formed, from the silence of the subconscious mind. This simple experiment demonstrates that we do not consciously craft each thought from scratch. The vast majority of our mental content is generated by unconscious processes and then presented to our conscious awareness. Our conscious mind, the ego, then identifies with the thought, claiming it as my thought and often weaving it into an ongoing narrative. But the actual creative act, the genesis of the thought itself, happens backstage, in the immense, associative network of the unseen mind. This view is strongly supported by modern neuroscience. The brain's default mode network, DMN, is a collection of brain regions that is most active when we are at rest, not focused on a specific external task, when we are daydreaming, mind-wandering, or letting our thoughts flow freely. This network is believed to be the neurological engine of the stream of consciousness, constantly retrieving memories, imagining future scenarios, and generating the self-referential inner monologue that constitutes so much of our mental life. The activity of this network is largely automatic and unconscious. The thoughts that pop into our heads are the conscious output of this network's ceaseless background processing. This perspective radically questions our sense of agency. We feel like we are in control, directing our thoughts. And to some extent, we are. We can consciously choose to focus our attention on a specific problem or memory, a process that involves the brain's executive control network overriding the default mode network. But we cannot control the spontaneous emergence of thoughts themselves. The more we try to suppress a particular thought, the classic, don't think of a white bear experiment, the more it tends to intrude. This is because the act of monitoring for the thought keeps it active. This reveals the limited power of the conscious I to dictate the contents of the mind. The mind fuck of the stream of consciousness is the realization that you might be more like a space than a thing, more like the screen than the movie playing on it. The thoughts, feelings, and sensations are the movie projected from the subconscious. The conscious, you, is the awareness in which this movie unfolds. This shift in perspective is a cornerstone of many contemplative and mystical traditions. In Buddhist philosophy, for example, a key insight is the recognition that thoughts are just thoughts. They are impersonal mental events that arise and pass away, and we do not need to identify with them or believe everything they say. This detachment from the stream of consciousness is seen as a primary path to liberation from suffering. If you are not your thoughts, then you cannot be ultimately harmed by them. This has profound implications for our mental well-being. If we are identified with our stream of consciousness, we can be swept away by currents of anxiety, worry, and self-criticism. We believe the fearful narrator in our head is our true self. But if we can learn to simply observe the stream without being carried away by it, we can find a place of inner peace and stability, a quiet center in the midst of mental turbulence. This is the fundamental goal of mindfulness meditation. The mystery of where thoughts come from remains. Are they products of purely neurochemical processes, random firings in complex neural networks? Do they follow a hidden, associative logic, connecting memories and concepts in ways we don't consciously grasp? Do they sometimes carry genuine intuition, meaningful signals from the deep processing of the subconscious? The answer is likely all of the above. The stream is a complex mix of neural noise, habitual patterns, emotional reactions, creative associations, and occasionally profound insight. The challenge is not to stop the stream, which is likely impossible, but to cultivate the wisdom to discern which thoughts are worth attending to and which can be allowed to simply float on by. As you continue to fall asleep, bring a gentle awareness to your own stream of consciousness. Notice the thoughts as they arise, drift through your mind, and fade away. You do not need to follow them, judge them, or push them away. Simply observe them like clouds moving across the sky, a memory from your day, a fragment of a plan, a random image. Acknowledge that these thoughts are emerging from the vast, mysterious depths of your subconscious mind. They are not the entirety of who you are. You are the quiet, spacious awareness in which they appear. Find deep relaxation in this sense of detachment, in letting go of the role of the thinker and simply resting as the witness, allowing the stream of consciousness to flow on its own, becoming softer, quieter, and more dreamlike as it gently carries you into the silent depths of sleep. The concept of the flow state. We have spoken of the subconscious mind as a source of hidden desires, ancient symbols, and fleeting intuitions. But what happens when this powerful, unseen part of our mind takes the lead in a moment of peak performance, when our skills are so perfectly honed that they operate without the interference of our conscious thoughts? This is the flow state, a concept pioneered by psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is the experience of being completely immersed, focused, and energized in an activity, a state of optimal experience, where your sense of self seems to dissolve, time distorts, and your actions feel effortless and fluid. It is the state the musician enters when they are lost in the music, the athlete when they are in the zone, the artist when the painting seems to paint itself. The mystery of flow is that this peak performance is often achieved by lessening conscious control, by allowing our highly trained unconscious competence to take over. It's a mind-fuck paradox that questions our belief that conscious effort is the key to success, suggesting instead that our greatest abilities are often unleashed when we learn to get out of our own way. Let us explore this beautiful secret of the subconscious as you fall asleep. Csikszentmihalyi identified several key characteristics of the flow state through his research, interviewing thousands of people from rock climbers and chess masters to surgeons and poets. First, there is a deep and intense concentration on the present moment. All distractions seem to fade away as your awareness narrows and focuses entirely on the task at hand. Second, there is a merging of action and awareness. You are not consciously thinking, now I will do this, now I will do that. Your actions seem to flow spontaneously and seamlessly from your intentions, without the usual internal monologue of self-direction. Third, there is a loss of reflective self-consciousness. Your sense of a separate ego, or self, watching and judging your performance disappears. You become one with the activity. The anxiety of self-evaluation vanishes, freeing up immense mental resources. Fourth, there is a sense of personal control or agency. Despite the loss of self-consciousness, you feel a sense of mastery and confidence, a feeling that you can handle the challenges of the activity. Fifth, there is a distortion of temporal experience. Time seems to either speed up, with hours passing like minutes, or in some cases, slow down, with moments stretching out. Your subjective experience of time becomes untethered from the clock. Sixth, the experience is autotelic, meaning it is intrinsically rewarding. You are engaged in the activity for its own sake, not for some future reward or external validation. The process itself is the prize. The conditions for entering flow are also quite specific. It typically occurs when you are engaged in an activity that has clear goals and provides immediate feedback. Most importantly, there must be a balance between the perceived challenge of the task and your own perceived skill level. If the challenge is too low relative to your skill, you feel bored. If the challenge is too high relative to your skill, you feel anxious. The flow state exists in the delicate, dynamic channel where the challenge is high enough to fully engage your skills, but not so high as to be overwhelming. It is on this edge between boredom and anxiety that the mind can become fully absorbed. So, what is happening in the brain during a flow state? This is where the psychology mystery deepens. Neuroscientific research suggests that flow is associated with a phenomenon called transient hypofrontality. Hypo means less than normal, and frontality refers to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for our conscious, analytical, self-aware, and critical thinking, the seat of the ego. During flow, it appears that this part of the brain temporarily becomes less active. The inner critic, the self-monitoring, deliberative part of your mind, literally quiets down. This quieting of the conscious ego allows other brain regions to operate more freely and efficiently. The vast, implicit knowledge and highly practiced skills stored in the subconscious mind, what is often called unconscious competence, are allowed to come to the forefront and guide behavior without the interference, second-guessing, and performance anxiety generated by the conscious self. This is the central paradox and mindfuck of flow. We achieve our highest level of performance not by trying harder with our conscious mind, but by surrendering conscious control to the deeper, more automatic, and often more competent parts of our brain. It is the culmination of the process of habit formation we explored earlier. It is the state where a skill has been practiced so extensively that it has become fully integrated into the unconscious behavioral loops of the basal ganglia and other motor areas, allowing for fluid, effortless, and brilliant execution. The conscious mind has done its work during the thousands of hours of practice. Now, in the moment of performance, its job is to trust the subconscious and get out of the way. This secret of the subconscious has profound implications for how we approach learning, work, and life. It suggests that the path to mastery involves a transition from conscious incompetence, knowing you're bad at something, to conscious competence, having to think carefully to do something well, to the ultimate goal of unconscious competence, where the skill becomes second nature, allowing for the possibility of flow. It also highlights the importance of finding activities that match our skill level and provide clear goals, creating the conditions where flow can naturally emerge. It suggests that a meaningful life is not just about pleasure or relaxation, but also about deep engagement and the pursuit of mastery. The flow state represents a perfect harmony between the conscious and subconscious mind. The conscious mind sets the intention and provides the focus, but it trusts the deep, intuitive, and highly trained subconscious to execute the performance. It is a state of integrated, holistic functioning, where the inner conflicts between the thinker and the doer temporarily dissolve into a unified stream of action. As you continue to fall asleep, allow your mind to recall a time when you were completely absorbed in an activity, a time when you lost track of the hours, when your sense of self faded away, when your actions felt effortless and fluid. This was a flow state. A moment of beautiful synergy between your conscious intention and your unconscious competence. Acknowledge the incredible capacity for this state that exists within you, the potential for effortless mastery that is cultivated through practice and passion. Find deep relaxation in the idea of letting go of the critical, striving, conscious self, trusting in the deep, quiet, competent wisdom of your subconscious mind. Rest peacefully, knowing that your greatest potential can sometimes be unlocked not by more effort, but by a graceful surrender to the flow of your own being. Meditative states. Throughout our long journey tonight, we have explored the vast, powerful, and often mysterious realm of the subconscious mind. We have seen it as the source of our dreams, our intuitions, our hidden desires, our primal fears, and our most effortless skills. But so much of its wisdom and activity is drowned out by the constant noise of our conscious thoughts, our inner monologue, our worries, plans, and judgments. This leads us to a final, profound exploration, the practice of entering meditative states. Meditation, in its many forms, is an ancient and universal technology of the mind designed for a specific purpose: quieting the conscious mind in order to perceive what lies beneath it. It is a deliberate practice of withdrawing attention from the outer world and the ceaseless chatter of the ego, to create an inner stillness where the subtler signals of the subconscious can finally be heard. The mystery of meditative states is their power to transform our very perception of self and reality, revealing a secret path to inner peace and profound insight. This is not about forcing the mind to be empty, but about creating the conditions for a deeper listening, a dialogue with the unseen mind, and it is the ultimate pathway to deep relaxation and sleep. Let's begin by understanding what a meditative state is from a psychological and neurological perspective. Our normal waking consciousness is typically characterized by high-frequency beta brainwaves, associated with active, analytical thought, problem-solving, and focus on the external world. As we begin to relax, our brainwaves slow down into the alpha state, a state of calm, restful alertness often associated with daydreaming or the moments just before sleep. Meditation, particularly for beginners, is often the practice of intentionally cultivating and sustaining this alpha state. As the practice deepens, meditators can learn to enter even slower brainwave states while remaining consciously aware. Theta waves, which are dominant in the hypnagogic state and in REM sleep, are associated with deep relaxation, heightened creativity, and the emergence of subconscious imagery. Experienced meditators can often generate strong theta activity, placing them on that fertile threshold between waking and sleeping, a state where, as we've explored, insights from the subconscious can bubble up more freely. The deepest meditative states are associated with delta waves, the slow, powerful waves of deep, dreamless sleep. To be consciously aware while the brain is in a delta state is a profound and rare state of consciousness, often described in contemplative traditions as a state of pure being or unity with the ground of existence. The ability to consciously access these different brainwave states is one of the key technologies of meditation. How is this achieved? There are countless meditative techniques, but most fall into two broad categories. The first is focused attention meditation. In this practice, you train your mind to rest its focus on a single neutral object, most commonly the sensation of the breath. As you sit quietly, you simply pay attention to the feeling of the air entering and leaving your body. Inevitably, your mind will wander, pulled away by a thought, a memory, a plan. This is the normal chattering of the conscious mind. The core practice is not to prevent this wandering, but to gently, without judgment, notice that your mind has wandered, and then softly guide your attention back to the breath. You do this again and again and again. Each time you do this, you are performing a mental bicep curl, strengthening the neural circuits of attention and, crucially, disidentifying with your thoughts. You are practicing being the calm, stable witness to the stream of consciousness, rather than being swept away by it. The second major category is open monitoring meditation, often associated with mindfulness. In this practice, instead of focusing on a single object, you cultivate a broad, open, and non-judgmental awareness of whatever arises in your experience from moment to moment. A thought, a feeling, a bodily sensation, an external sound, all are allowed to arise, be noticed without judgment, and pass away without you latching onto any of it. This practice directly reveals the impermanent, transient nature of our mental contents. It is a direct, experiential exploration of the idea that you are not your thoughts, but the spacious awareness in which they occur. The mindfuck of entering a meditative state is the profound shift in your sense of self that can occur. As the incessant chatter of the conscious ego, the narrator of your life story, begins to quiet down, you start to experience a deeper, more fundamental level of your being. The rigid boundaries of this self can begin to feel more porous and fluid. This is because the part of the brain that generates our sense of a separate, located self, the default mode network, tends to become less active during deep meditation. The result can be a feeling of peace, spaciousness, and a sense of connection to something larger than your individual personality. You are, in a very real sense, quieting the conscious to hear the subconscious, and what you often find in the resulting silence is not chaos, but a deep, underlying stillness. What do we hear in this stillness? It is often not a voice speaking in words, but a more subtle form of communication. We might experience a surge of intuition, a clear knowing about a problem that arrives without thought. We might have a sudden emotional release, as a repressed feeling from the subconscious is finally given the space to be felt and passed through. We might experience the emergence of symbolic images or memories, the language of the deeper psyche. By creating an inner silence, we create a space for the secrets of the subconscious to reveal themselves. The gut feelings and somatic markers we've discussed become clearer and easier to perceive when the noise of conscious thought is turned down. The meditative state is the ultimate listening practice. This has profound therapeutic benefits. Regular meditation has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety by calming the amygdala, the brain's fear center. It can improve attention, memory, and emotional regulation by strengthening the prefrontal cortex. By fostering a state of non-judgmental self-awareness, it can help us to observe and change our own destructive habit loops. It provides a practical method for working with the contents of our minds, for befriending our own shadow, and for cultivating a more compassionate and integrated sense of self. It is the most direct and powerful tool we have for exploring our own inner world. The ultimate psychology mystery that meditation reveals is the nature of pure awareness itself. What is the state of consciousness that remains when all the thoughts, feelings, and perceptions have quieted down? Contemplative traditions from around the world suggest that this ground state is one of profound peace, clarity, and unity. They suggest that our ordinary thought-filled consciousness is a modification, a noisy state, and that our true nature is this silent, spacious awareness. Meditation is the process of returning home to this fundamental ground of our being. As you now prepare for the final surrender into sleep, let this very act be a form of meditation. Let the sound of this voice be your anchor, your object of focus. When your mind wanders into thoughts of yesterday or tomorrow, gently, without judgment, guide it back to the simple present moment reality of your own breath. Feel the air coming in and the air going out. There is nothing else you need to do, nothing to solve, nothing to figure out. You are quieting the conscious mind, creating a space of deep, receptive stillness. In this stillness, the deep wisdom of your subconscious can do its work of healing, restoring, and integrating. Trust in this silent, intelligent process. Find deep relaxation in the simple act of being aware, letting go of the thinker and resting as the witness, floating peacefully in the quiet, spacious, and profoundly restorative ocean of your own deep mind.